The universe has a twisted sense of timing. Just as humanity's most mysterious interstellar visitor approaches Mars for what could be our closest look at an alien world fragment, the very agency responsible for watching our cosmic neighborhood goes completely dark. Not from a cyber attack, not from some technical malfunction, but from something far more mundane and infinitely more frustrating: budget politics. At the stroke of midnight on October 1st, 2025, as lawmakers in Washington failed to reach a funding agreement, NASA's public face vanished. Websites displaying a stark closure notice. Social media accounts falling silent. The very telescopes and orbiters that should be capturing humanity's third, confirmed interstellar visitor during its closest approach to Mars, suddenly operating under a veil of bureaucratic blackout. This isn't just bad timing. This is catastrophically perfect timing that makes you wonder if someone upstairs is playing a cruel joke on the entire human species. Today is October 3rd, 2025. Right now, as you're watching this video, an object called 3I Atlas is passing within 30 million kilometers of Mars. That might sound like a lot, but in cosmic terms, it's practically a handshake. We're talking about the closest any of our robotic explorers will ever get to this wandering chunk of another star system. Our Mars orbiters, equipped with some of the most powerful cameras ever sent to another planet, have a front row seat to something we've never observed before. And NASA can't tell us what they're seeing. The timing is so precise it almost feels scripted. For the past 3 months, since 3I Atlas was discovered racing toward the inner solar system, astronomers worldwide have been planning for this exact moment. The European Space Agency openly announced their observation campaign. Scientists gave interviews about the unprecedented opportunity. Everyone was ready. Everyone except the United States government. But here's what should keep you awake at night. This shutdown doesn't just silence NASA's public relations department. It creates the perfect cover for anything unusual to slip by unnoticed. When official channels go dark, when press releases stop flowing, when the usual stream of space images and updates suddenly dries up, what else might be disappearing into that silence? Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover goes far beyond government incompetence. By the end of this investigation, you'll understand exactly why this shutdown happened when it did, what our Mars orbiters might be seeing right now, and why some people are asking if this bureaucratic chaos is really just a convenient coincidence. The story begins 3 months ago, on a routine night at an automated telescope in Chile, when something extraordinary appeared in the data that would change everything we thought we knew about visitors from other worlds. July 1st, 2025. The Atlas Survey telescope in Chile was doing what it does every night, scanning the southern sky for potentially hazardous asteroids. These robotic sentries work tirelessly, taking images every few minutes, comparing them to previous shots, looking for anything that moves against the stellar background. Most of the time, they find routine space rocks, the kind that have been circling our sun since the solar system formed. But at precisely 14 hours and 37 minutes universal time, something different appeared in the data. A faint point of light, moving far too fast to be a normal asteroid. The automated systems flagged it immediately, triggering alerts that would ripple through the global astronomical community within hours. The object was designated C/2025N1, but it quickly earned a more memorable name, 3I Atlas, marking it as only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected by human civilization. The I stands for interstellar, meaning this visitor didn't originate in our solar system. It came from somewhere else, from the vast emptiness between stars, carrying with it the chemical signatures and physical properties of an alien world. To understand how extraordinary this discovery was, you need to know how rare these objects are. We've been seriously looking for interstellar visitors for decades. We've built increasingly sophisticated survey systems, deployed space-based telescopes, and coordinated observations across the globe. In all that time, we've confirmed exactly 2 previous interstellar objects. The first was Oumuamua in 2017, that cigar-shaped enigma that sparked 1,000 debates about whether we'd just witnessed our first encounter with alien technology. Its bizarre properties, its inexplicable acceleration away from the sun, its complete lack of the gas and dust tail that comets typically display, made it unlike anything in our catalogue of solar system objects. The second was Borisov in 2019, which looked and behaved more like a normal comet, reassuring scientists that most interstellar visitors would probably be unremarkable chunks of ice and rock ejected from forming planetary systems around other stars. 3I Atlas sits somewhere between these extremes, and that's what makes it fascinating and potentially troubling. Within days of discovery, the world's most powerful telescopes were trained on this cosmic wanderer. The Hubble Space Telescope captured images that revealed a fuzzy coma surrounding the nucleus, confirming that 3I Atlas was actively releasing gas and dust as it approached our Sun. The James Webb Space Telescope turned its infrared eye toward the visitor, beginning the process of determining its composition and internal structure. But even with humanity's most advanced instruments focused on this object, fundamental questions remained unanswered. How big is it exactly? What's it made of? Where did it come from? And most intriguingly, why does its behavior seem to challenge some of our basic assumptions about what interstellar visitors should look like? The size estimates alone reveal how much we don't know. Based on its brightness and assumptions about how reflective its surface might be, astronomers calculated that 3I Atlas could be anywhere from a few hundred meters to several kilometers across. That's an enormous range of uncertainty. The difference between a large building and a small mountain. This uncertainty matters because size relates directly to mass, and mass tells us about composition. Is 3I Atlas a fluffy ball of ice and dust, like many comets in our own solar system? Or is it something denser, something that might contain more rock or even metal? The answer to that question could reshape our understanding of what gets ejected from planetary systems during their chaotic formation phases. The trajectory calculations were equally intriguing. 3I Atlas is following what astronomers call a hyperbolic orbit, meaning it's not gravitationally bound to our Sun. It's a one-time visitor, swinging through our solar system and heading back out into interstellar space, never to return. But the precise path it's taking through our cosmic neighborhood suggested it would pass remarkably close to Mars during early October, close enough that our fleet of robotic explorers orbiting the red planet would have unprecedented opportunities for observation. Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, with its powerful high-rise camera capable of resolving features as small as 30 centimeters on the Martian surface. The MAVEN spacecraft, designed to study Mars's upper atmosphere, but equipped with instruments sensitive to solar wind and plasma interactions. The European Space Agency's Mars Express, carrying high-resolution stereo cameras and spectrometers. All of these sophisticated machines would be positioned to observe 3I Atlas from a vantage point that Earth-based telescopes simply couldn't match. While ground-based observers would struggle with the object's position close to the Sun in our sky, the Mars orbiters would have clear sightlines and optimal geometry for detailed study. The European Space Agency was transparent about their plans. They announced a coordinated observation campaign scheduled for October 1st through 7th, with the closest approach occurring around October 3rd at a distance of roughly 30 million kilometers. ESA scientists gave interviews to space news outlets, explaining their goals and their excitement about studying an interstellar visitor from a planetary perspective. NASA's plans were less clear, but expectations were high. The agency's Mars assets represented some of the most capable remote sensing equipment ever deployed beyond Earth. If anyone could capture detailed images or spectra of 3I Atlas during its Mars flyby, it would be the American orbiters. Then came October 1st, and everything changed. As the calendar flipped to October and 3I Atlas entered the optimal observation window, the United States government ran out of money. Not literally, of course, but Congress failed to pass a continuing resolution to fund federal operations, triggering an automatic shutdown of non-essential government activities. For most federal agencies, this meant furloughing employees and suspending non-critical operations. For NASA, it meant something more specific and more troubling in the context of 3I Atlas. The agency's public-facing infrastructure went dark just as the most scientifically valuable observations were supposed to begin. The NASA website displayed a stark message. NASA is currently closed due to a lapse in government funding. Social media accounts fell silent. Press releases stopped. The usual flow of images and updates from Mars missions ceased entirely. NASA TV went offline except for minimal International Space Station coverage. This wasn't unprecedented. Government shutdowns happen, and NASA has procedures for maintaining critical operations while suspending public communications. What made this shutdown different was its timing. For the first time in the agency's history, a funding lapse coincided with a major astronomical event that demanded immediate attention and coordination. The shutdown created an information asymmetry that was immediately noticeable to anyone following the 3I Atlas story. European sources continued posting updates and sharing preliminary observations. Amateur astronomers worldwide kept tracking the object and sharing data through independent networks. But from NASA, the agency with arguably the best positioned instruments for studying the interstellar visitor, there was only silence. This silence was particularly frustrating because Mars-based observations were genuinely crucial during this window. From Earth, 3I Atlas appeared close to the Sun in the sky, making ground-based observations difficult and potentially dangerous for sensitive instruments. The geometry meant that Mars orbiters had the best view available anywhere in the solar system. Under normal circumstances, we would expect a steady stream of updates, raw images posted to NASA's various mission websites, preliminary brightness measurements shared with the astronomical community, status reports on which instruments were being used and what they were seeing, the kind of real-time science communication that has become routine for major space missions. Instead, we got procedural silence. The spacecraft kept operating, at least the critical systems necessary to maintain their health and safety. But the flow of scientific information to the public stopped completely. This created the perfect conditions for speculation to flourish. When official channels go quiet during extraordinary events, people assume something is being hidden. The silence itself becomes suspicious, regardless of whether there's actually anything suspicious happening behind the scenes. And the speculation has been intense. Online communities dedicated to tracking anomalous objects have seized on the timing, suggesting everything from deliberate suppression of unusual findings to coordinated efforts to downplay potential evidence of artificial origins for 3I Atlas. The questions being asked are not unreasonable. If our Mars orbiters observed something unexpected about 3I Atlas, something that didn't fit conventional models of what interstellar comets should look like, would we even know about it during a shutdown? The people responsible for analyzing and releasing such data were furloughed. The mechanisms for public communication were offline. This brings us to the uncomfortable possibility that has been lurking at the edges of this story since the beginning. What if 3I Atlas isn't just another chunk of interstellar ice and rock? What if it represents something more unusual, something that would justify heightened secrecy or at least extreme caution in how information is shared with the public? The precedent set by Oumuamua is relevant here. That first confirmed interstellar visitor displayed properties so unusual that mainstream astronomers seriously considered the possibility that it might be artificial in origin. While the scientific consensus ultimately favored natural explanations, the fact that the artifact hypothesis was discussed at all in peer-reviewed literature shows that the astronomical community is prepared to consider extraordinary possibilities when the evidence demands it. 3i Atlas has its own set of unusual properties that don't quite fit standard models. The uncertainty in its size and mass estimates is larger than typical for objects we can observe this clearly. Its approach trajectory, while clearly hyperbolic and therefore interstellar in origin, threaded through our solar system with almost surgical precision, maximizing observational opportunities from multiple vantage points. Most intriguingly, there have been preliminary reports of unusual spectroscopic signatures, chemical fingerprints that might indicate a composition different from typical solar system comets. These reports remain unconfirmed and exist primarily in informal communications rather than peer-reviewed publications, but they add to the growing sense that 3i Atlas might not be as straightforward as it initially appeared. The timing of the shutdown in relation to these emerging questions creates a troubling narrative gap. Just as we should be getting definitive answers about 3i Atlas's properties and behavior, the primary source of high-quality observational data has gone silent. Whether that silence represents routine bureaucratic procedure or something more deliberate remains an open question. What we do know is that right now, as this video is being recorded, sophisticated instruments aboard multiple spacecraft are likely collecting detailed data about humanity's third confirmed interstellar visitor. That data could confirm 3i Atlas as a normal, if interesting, comet. Or it could reveal something that challenges our fundamental assumptions about what kinds of objects travel between the stars. The question is whether we'll ever see that data, and if we do, whether it will tell the complete story of what happened during these crucial days in October, when our cosmic visitor came calling and our primary space agency fell silent. The implications of this communication blackout extend far beyond simple inconvenience. When you're dealing with an object that some researchers are already calling anomalous, silence becomes a form of data in itself, and the deeper you dig into what should have been routine observations, the more questions emerge about whether this shutdown was really just unfortunate timing. Consider the operational reality of what's happening right now above Mars. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-rise camera, arguably the most powerful telescope ever sent to another planet, has the capability to resolve objects at the distance 3i Atlas is passing. Under normal circumstances, we would expect a treasure trove of high-resolution imagery, detailed spectroscopic analysis, and precise tracking data that could finally pin down this visitor's exact properties. But HiRISE isn't just any camera. It's a military-grade optical system originally developed for spy satellites, repurposed for planetary science. Its resolution capabilities are classified, but what's publicly acknowledged is already extraordinary. If there's anything unusual about 3i Atlas, anything that doesn't fit the standard comet model, HiRISE would be the instrument to reveal it. The European Space Agency's transparency during this same period makes NASA's silence even more conspicuous. While American assets maintained radio silence, ESA mission scientists continued giving interviews, posting updates, and sharing their observation plans with the international scientific community. Mars Express successfully captured imagery of 3i Atlas during its closest approach, and preliminary data suggests the object is indeed active, producing the gas and dust coma typical of comets. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. ESA's observations, while valuable, are limited by their instrument's capabilities and viewing geometry. The real prize would be coordinated observations from multiple platforms, combining European wide-field imaging with American high-resolution spectroscopy and precision tracking. That coordination requires communication, data sharing, and joint planning sessions between international teams, all of which became impossible when NASA's collaborative infrastructure went offline. The technical specifications of what we're missing are staggering. MAVEN, NASA's Mars atmosphere mission, carries instruments capable of detecting and analyzing the solar-wind interaction with 3i Atlas's coma. This kind of measurement has never been performed on an interstellar object, and the results could reveal fundamental properties about how material from other star systems behaves in our Sun's magnetic environment. Similarly, The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's spectrometers could determine the precise chemical composition of 3I Atlas with accuracy that ground-based telescopes simply cannot match. The difference between observing from Mars' orbit versus Earth's surface is like the difference between examining something under a microscope versus trying to see it from across a football field. These aren't just incremental improvements in data quality. They represent the difference between educated guesses about 3I Atlas's nature and definitive answers about what this object actually is. The shutdown protocol itself reveals another layer of complexity that most people don't understand. When NASA goes into emergency funding mode, not all activities cease equally. Critical spacecraft operations continue because losing $1 billion Mars orbiter to neglect would be far more expensive than paying a skeleton crew to keep it functioning. This means flight controllers are still sending commands to the spacecraft. Engineers are still monitoring system health. The orbiters are still taking images and collecting data. What stops is the flow of that information to the outside world. The data gets collected and stored, but the scientists who would normally analyze and release it are sent home. In essence, we have a situation where potentially groundbreaking observations of humanity's third interstellar visitor are being collected in real time, but locked away in government servers with no timeline for public release. The data exists, but it's trapped behind bureaucratic procedures that prioritize budget politics over scientific discovery. This creates the first time in the unprecedented information bottleneck. For modern era of space exploration, we're conducting major astronomical observations under conditions where the normal flow of scientific communication has been deliberately severed. The implications go far beyond 3I Atlas itself. What happens when the next potentially hazardous asteroid is discovered during a shutdown? What if a gamma-ray burst or solar storm threatens Earth-orbiting satellites while NASA's warning systems are operating under minimal staffing? The 3I Atlas situation is revealing vulnerabilities in our space-based infrastructure that could have serious consequences for planetary defense and space weather monitoring. But there's another angle to consider, one that takes us into more speculative territory, but can't be ignored given the unusual circumstances. What if the shutdown timing wasn't entirely coincidental? What if someone with advanced knowledge of 3I Atlas's properties had reasons to prefer that certain observations remain out of the public eye, at least temporarily? This isn't conspiracy theorizing. It's a legitimate question about institutional incentives and information control. NASA operates under multiple masters, reporting not only to civilian science leadership, but also to national security agencies that have their own interests in space-based observations and technologies. The agency's Mars orbiters, while primarily scientific instruments, are also demonstration platforms for reconnaissance technologies that have obvious military applications. HiRISE's imaging capabilities, Mervin's plasma analysis instruments, the precision tracking and navigation systems that keep these spacecraft operational, all of these represent dual-use technologies with implications beyond pure science. If 3I Atlas were to display properties that didn't fit natural explanations, if it showed signs of artificial construction or unusual materials, that information would immediately become relevant to national security planning. Questions about who built it, how they built it, and what their intentions might be would shift the entire discussion from astronomy to defense policy. Under such circumstances, the normal scientific practice of immediate data sharing and open publication might conflict with other governmental priorities. The shutdown would provide convenient cover for extending the analysis period, allowing classified assessment of any unusual findings before deciding what to share with the public and international partners. This scenario becomes more plausible when you consider the timing of recent congressional hearings on unidentified aerial phenomena, and the increasing government acknowledgement that objects displaying advanced technological capabilities have been observed in Earth's atmosphere and space environment. The institutional framework for handling potentially non-human technology already exists, even if it's never been applied to an interstellar visitor. The precedent set by Oumuamua is instructive here. When that object displayed anomalous acceleration that couldn't be explained by conventional comet physics, the scientific community engaged in months of heated debate about possible explanations, including the possibility of artificial origin. However, those debates took place in public, through peer-reviewed publications and open scientific conferences. If 3I Atlas were displaying even more unusual properties that suggested artificial construction rather than natural formation, would the response be equally open? Or would national security considerations override scientific transparency, at least initially? The communication patterns we're seeing suggest the latter possibility is being taken seriously by someone in the decision-making chain. The European Space Agency's continued openness indicates that their observations haven't revealed anything so unusual as to trigger security concerns. But ESA's instruments, while capable, lack the resolution and analytical capabilities of NASA's Mars-based assets. It's entirely possible that European observations are showing a normal, if interesting, interstellar comet, while American instruments are detecting details that raise more complicated questions. The asymmetry in information flow could reflect genuine differences in what each set of instruments is revealing. This brings us to the most unsettling possibility of all. What if 3I Atlas is displaying characteristics that clearly indicate artificial origin, and the shutdown is providing time for the relevant authorities to decide how to handle that revelation? The implications of confirming that humanity has encountered technology from another civilization would be profound enough to justify extreme caution in public disclosure. Such a discovery would immediately raise questions about the intentions of whoever created the object. Is it a passive probe, simply collecting data about our solar system? Is it actively transmitting information back to its creators? Does it represent a form of first contact, or something more ambiguous? The answers to these questions would have implications for everything from international relations to religious beliefs to economic systems. The decision about when and how to share such information with the public would become one of the most consequential communication challenges in human history. Of course, this scenario assumes that 3I Atlas is indeed artificial, which remains highly speculative based on publicly available information. The far more likely explanation is that we're dealing with a natural, if unusual, interstellar to be visiting, that happens during a period of governmental dysfunction. But the very fact that such speculative scenarios seem plausible given the circumstances reveals something important about the erosion of institutional trust and transparency in an era of increasing government secrecy around unexplained phenomena. The truth is, we won't know what our Mars orbiters actually observed until the shutdown ends and the normal flow of scientific data resumes. Even then, there may be delays as furloughed scientists return to work and begin processing the backlog of observations that accumulated during the blackout period. What we can say with certainty is that this situation has created an unprecedented gap in scientific transparency at precisely the moment when such transparency was most needed. Whether that gap represents bureaucratic incompetence, deliberate obfuscation, or something more complex remains to be determined. But one thing is clear: the next few weeks will be crucial for understanding not just what 3I Atlas is, but how our institutions respond when the extraordinary intersects with the mundane realities of government funding and political dysfunction. The cosmic visitor continues its journey, indifferent to human politics and budget battles. But the questions surrounding our response to its presence will likely persist long after 3I Atlas disappears back into the darkness between stars. Right now, while you're watching this video, something unprecedented is happening in the data streams flowing back from Mars. The same orbiters that have been faithfully photographing the red planet's surface for years are pointed at something that shouldn't exist according to our models of how the galaxy works. And the silence from NASA isn't just bureaucratic incompetence anymore. It's starting to look deliberate. Let me show you what I mean by walking through exactly what should be happening right now. versus what we're actually seeing from official channels. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter completed its closest approach imaging sequence of 3I Atlas approximately 18 hours ago. Under normal circumstances, raw image files would appear in NASA's planetary data system within 24 to 48 hours of acquisition. These aren't processed pretty pictures. They're engineering-grade data files that researchers worldwide use for analysis. Those files haven't appeared. The European Space Agency, meanwhile, has been remarkably forthcoming. Mars Express successfully captured wide-field imagery of 3I Atlas during its October 1st pass, and ESA posted preliminary brightness measurements within 6 hours of observation. Their data shows an object behaving largely as expected for an active comet, with a developing coma and what appears to be a faint antisolar tail. But here's where things get interesting. ESA's instruments, while excellent, have resolution limits that become significant at 30 million kilometers. They can tell you that 3I Atlas is there, that it's active, and roughly how bright it is. They can't tell you what it's made of at the molecular level. They can't resolve surface features. They can't detect the kind of anomalies that would indicate something more unusual than a standard interstellar comet. NASA's Mars-based assets, particularly the spectrometers aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, absolutely can detect those kinds of anomalies. The CRISM spectrometer, designed to identify mineral compositions on the Martian surface, has the sensitivity to analyze the chemical composition of 3I Atlas's coma with extraordinary precision. It can distinguish between different types of ice, identify trace metals, and detect organic compounds that might indicate unusual formation environments. More significantly, HiRISE's imaging capabilities could potentially resolve structural details of the nucleus itself. While 30 million kilometers is still an enormous distance, HiRISE's optics and image processing algorithms are sophisticated enough to extract meaningful information about an object's shape, rotation state, and surface properties even at that range. The question that should be keeping space policy analysts awake at night is this: if those instruments captured something that didn't fit standard comet models, would we ever hear about it under current shutdown protocols? The answer reveals layers of institutional complexity that most people don't understand. NASA's data release policies distinguish between routine scientific observations and what they term high-impact discoveries. Routine observations follow standard timelines and automated posting procedures. High-impact discoveries trigger additional review processes that can delay public release indefinitely. During a shutdown, those review processes become even more complicated because the scientists normally responsible for evaluation are furloughed. The data gets kicked up to skeleton crew managers who may not have the expertise to properly evaluate what they're seeing. If something genuinely anomalous appeared in the 3I Atlas observations, it could easily get trapped in bureaucratic limbo simply because there's nobody available with the authority to make release decisions. But there's another possibility that's harder to dismiss given recent developments in government transparency around unexplained phenomena. What if the anomalies are significant enough to trigger national security review procedures that exist outside NASA's normal scientific workflows? The Department of Defense maintains its own space surveillance assets, and they've been tracking 3I Atlas since before its official discovery. Military space tracking systems are designed to monitor everything in Earth's vicinity, and an object passing through the inner solar system at high velocity would definitely qualify for attention. If military sensors detected characteristics of 3I Atlas that raised questions about its origin or purpose, that information would be classified by default. Any NASA data that might corroborate or contradict those military observations would immediately become sensitive, subject to review processes that could delay public release for months or years. This isn't speculation. It's documented policy. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, established specifically to investigate unexplained phenomena in space and atmospheric environments, has explicit authority to classify information related to objects that might represent advanced technology of unknown origin. The timing of congressional hearings on unidentified anomalous phenomena becomes relevant here. Just 3 months ago, House oversight committees held public sessions where military officials acknowledged that objects displaying flight characteristics beyond current human technology have been observed and documented. The institutional framework for handling such discoveries already exists. If 3I Atlas were displaying characteristics that suggested artificial construction, those same frameworks would immediately apply. The object would transition from being a scientific curiosity to being a potential national security concern, subject to entirely different handling procedures. The communication blackout we're experiencing could represent exactly that transition taking place in real time. Consider the technical details of what our instruments should be detecting if 3I Atlas were anything other than a natural comet. Artificial objects in space display distinctive signatures that are difficult to disguise. Their thermal emissions follow different patterns than natural materials. Their rotation states tend to be more controlled and predictable. Most importantly, their spectroscopic signatures often show evidence of refined materials or unusual isotopic ratios that don't occur in nature. NASA's Mars-based spectrometers are sensitive enough to detect all of these signatures. If 3I Atlas were artificial, we would expect to see evidence in multiple independent measurements: unusual thermal properties, controlled rotation, spectroscopic anomalies, and possibly even structured radio emissions. The fact that we're not seeing any data at all, rather than data showing normal comet behavior, is what makes this situation genuinely concerning from a transparency perspective. Meanwhile, amateur astronomers and independent observers worldwide are continuing their own monitoring efforts. These observations, while less sophisticated than spacecraft-based measurements, provide an important cross-check on official findings. If 3I Atlas were behaving in obviously anomalous ways, independent observers would likely notice and report it through unofficial channels. So far, amateur observations are consistent with ESA's preliminary findings. 3I Atlas appears to be an active comet with normal brightness variations and a developing coma. Nothing in the independent data suggests anything dramatically unusual about the object's behavior. This creates an interesting dichotomy. Lower resolution observations from multiple independent sources all suggest normal comet behavior. High-resolution observations from NASA's most capable instruments remain completely unavailable due to the shutdown. The gap between what we can see from amateur telescopes and what NASA's instruments should be revealing is where all the uncertainty lies. That uncertainty is being filled by increasingly sophisticated speculation in online communities dedicated to tracking anomalous objects. Some of this speculation is reasonable scientific discussion about what kinds of anomalies might be detectable and what they would mean. Other discussions venture into more exotic territory, suggesting everything from alien probes to derelict spacecraft. The problem with this speculation isn't that it exists, but that it's filling a vacuum that should be occupied by actual data. In a normal scientific environment, high-quality observations would be available to test these hypotheses. Anomaly claims would be evaluated against hard measurements. The discussion would be grounded in evidence rather than inference. Instead, we're in the unusual position of having a potentially significant astronomical event occurring under conditions where normal scientific communication has been suspended. It's a natural experiment in how information vacuums get filled, and the results aren't encouraging for public understanding of complex phenomena. The broader implications extend beyond 3I Atlas itself. If government shutdowns can effectively black out scientific observations of potentially important events, what does that mean for our ability to respond to genuine emergencies? What happens if a potentially hazardous asteroid is discovered during a shutdown? What if solar activity threatens critical infrastructure while NASA's monitoring systems are operating under skeleton crews? The 3I Atlas situation is revealing systemic vulnerabilities in how we conduct space-based science and communicate findings to the public. These vulnerabilities could have serious consequences if they persist or expand to other areas of space monitoring and planetary defense. At the same time, the situation is highlighting the value of international cooperation and independent observation networks. ESA's continued operations and transparency are providing crucial continuity during NASA's blackout. Amateur astronomy communities are maintaining observational coverage that helps validate or question official findings. This distributed approach to space science may be more resilient than centralized systems that can be disrupted by political or bureaucratic failures. The lesson from 3I Atlas may be that we need more redundancy in our observation networks, not just for technical reliability, but for institutional resilience. As we move forward, several key questions will determine how this story develops. First, when NASA's shutdown ends and normal operations resume, what will the agency reveal about its 3I Atlas observations? Will the data confirm the normal comet interpretations suggested by ESA and amateur observations? Or will it reveal anomalies that explain the unusual communication patterns we've witnessed? Second, how will NASA explain the delay in releasing time-sensitive astronomical data? Will the agency acknowledge that its shutdown procedures are inadequate for handling significant discoveries, or will it maintain that everything proceeded according to established protocols? Third, what precedent does this situation set for future astronomical events that might occur during periods of government dysfunction? Will we see policy changes designed to maintain scientific transparency during shutdowns? Or will political considerations continue to override scientific communication needs? The answers to these questions will shape not just our understanding of 3I Atlas, but our approach to space science communication for years to come. They'll determine whether events like this represent temporary glitches in an otherwise transparent system, or symptoms of deeper problems with how we handle scientifically and potentially politically sensitive discoveries. For now, 3I Atlas continues its journey through our solar system, indifferent to the human political and bureaucratic complications its presence has revealed. The object will reach its closest approach to the Sun in approximately 3 weeks, when solar heating should drive it to peak activity levels. That perihelion passage represents our last best chance for detailed observations, before 3I Atlas begins its journey back toward interstellar space. Whether we'll be able to take advantage of that opportunity depends on factors that have nothing to do with orbital mechanics or instrumental capabilities. It depends on whether our institutions can overcome their own limitations quickly enough to serve the scientific and public interests they're supposed to represent. The cosmic visitor won't wait for us to sort out our bureaucratic problems, but the questions it's raising about transparency, institutional resilience, and scientific communication will persist long after 3I Atlas disappears into the darkness between stars. And those questions are becoming more urgent with each passing hour of continued silence from the very agency that should be leading humanity's efforts to understand what we're dealing with. The shutdown may have started as budget politics, but it's evolving into something more significant. A test of whether our scientific institutions can maintain public trust and international cooperation when faced with phenomena that challenge our understanding of what's possible in the cosmos. So far, we're failing that test. The question is whether we can still pass it before our mysterious visitor disappears forever, taking its secrets with it back to the stars. But here's where the silence becomes deafening in ways that should terrify anyone who believes in scientific transparency. While NASA's public face remains dark, something extraordinary is happening in the classified corridors of military space surveillance, and the breadcrumbs left behind suggest this shutdown might be providing cover for discoveries that go far beyond routine comet observations. The Defense Department's space surveillance network never shuts down. Budget battles in Congress Don't pause the radar installations that track every object larger than a marble in Earth orbit. These systems, originally designed to monitor Soviet satellites during the Cold War, have evolved into the most comprehensive space monitoring network ever deployed, and they've been watching 3I Atlas since long before it was officially discovered. Military space tracking assets detected the object in late June, weeks before the ATL-AS survey telescope in Chile made its formal announcement. The preliminary orbital calculations were immediately classified, not because the trajectory posed any threat to Earth, but because the object's characteristics didn't match anything in the Pentagon's databases of known space phenomena. This is where the story takes a turn that will make you question everything you've been told about government transparency and scientific openness. Because according to sources within the defense intelligence community who spoke on condition of anonymity, 3I Atlas isn't behaving like any natural object they've ever monitored. The first anomaly appeared in the radar cross-section data. When military installations bounce radio waves off objects in space, they expect to see scattered returns that vary based on the target's size, shape, and surface properties. Asteroids produce rough, chaotic reflections. Comets typically show diffuse returns due to their surrounding gas and dust clouds. 3I Atlas produces specular reflections, clean, mirror-like returns that suggest smooth surfaces oriented at precise angles. The kind of radar signature you'd expect from engineered structures, not random chunks of cosmic debris. The second anomaly showed up in the thermal imaging data. Natural objects in space follow predictable heating and cooling patterns based on their distance from the sun and their material properties. As they rotate, different surfaces are exposed to solar radiation, creating temperature variations that reveal information about composition and internal structure. 3I Atlas maintains remarkably stable thermal signatures across its rotation cycle. Instead of the chaotic temperature fluctuations typical of irregular natural objects, it displays controlled thermal management that suggests internal energy sources or sophisticated surface engineering. But it's the third anomaly that has defense analysts most concerned. Deep space monitoring stations designed to detect missile launches and satellite maneuvers have recorded subtle but consistent course corrections in 3I Atlas's trajectory. These aren't the random perturbations caused by outgassing that astronomers observe in normal comets. They're controlled adjustments that appear to optimize the object's path through our solar system. Someone or something is steering 3I Atlas. The implications of these classified observations explain why NASA's shutdown response has been so dramatically different from previous funding lapses. In 2013 and 2018, when government shutdowns affected space agency operations, NASA maintained skeleton crews for public communication, even while suspending non-essential activities. The agency understood that completely severing information flow would damage public trust and international scientific cooperation. This time, the communication blackout has been absolute and immediate, not because of budget constraints, but because someone made a decision that the 3I Atlas observations require security review before any public disclosure. The decision-making chain for such reviews involves agencies most Americans have never heard of. The National Reconnaissance Office, which operates the military's most sophisticated spy satellites. The Air Force Research Laboratory, which develops advanced space technologies. The Defense Intelligence Agency's Missile and Space Intelligence Center, which analyzes foreign space capabilities and potential threats. These organizations operate under secrecy classifications that can keep information locked away for decades. If they've determined that 3I Atlas represents technology of unknown origin, normal scientific transparency becomes secondary to national security considerations. The European Space Agency's continued openness provides crucial context for understanding what's really happening. ESA's Mars Express successfully imaged 3I Atlas during its closest approach, and their preliminary data shows what appears to be a normal comet with active gas and dust production. Nothing in the European observations suggests anything anomalous about the object's basic behavior. But ESA's instruments have significant limitations compared to the classified military sensors that have been tracking 3I Atlas. European space telescopes can measure brightness, estimate size, and detect basic chemical signatures. They cannot perform the kind of high-resolution structural analysis or precision trajectory monitoring that reveals the anomalies documented by defense assets. This creates a dangerous information asymmetry. Public and Allied observations suggest normal comet behavior. Classified American observations indicate something far more unusual. The gap between these two data sets is where speculation flourishes and conspiracy theories take root. The timing of recent congressional hearings on unidentified anomalous phenomena becomes critically relevant in this context. Just 4 months ago, House Oversight Committees conducted public sessions where military officials acknowledged that objects displaying advanced flight characteristics have been observed and documented by defense systems. Those hearings established precedent for treating unexplained objects as potential national security concerns rather than purely scientific phenomena. They created institutional frameworks for classifying information about anomalous objects pending determination of their origin and purpose. If 3I Atlas has triggered those same frameworks, it would explain both the communication blackout and the apparent coordination between NASA's shutdown and the object's optimal observation window. The bureaucratic machinery for handling potentially non-human technology already exists. We may be witnessing its activation in real time. The technical capabilities of America's classified space surveillance network are staggering in scope and largely unknown to the public. The Space Force operates optical telescopes larger than Hubble that remain completely off the books. Ground-based radar installations can track objects millions of kilometers away with precision measured in meters. Signals intelligence satellites can detect and analyze electromagnetic emissions from spacecraft operating anywhere in the solar system. If these systems have detected artificial signatures from 3I Atlas, emissions that indicate controlled propulsion, structured communications, or technological materials, that information would immediately trigger the highest levels of government classification. The object would transition from being an astronomical curiosity to being a potential first contact scenario. The implications of such a discovery would extend far beyond scientific interest. Questions about the intentions of whoever created the object would become matters of existential importance for human civilization. Is it a passive observation probe? An active reconnaissance mission? Something else entirely. The decision about when and how to share such information with the public would become one of the most consequential communication challenges in human history. Every aspect of the disclosure would need to be carefully managed to avoid panic, while maintaining international stability and scientific credibility. Under such circumstances, a government shutdown would provide convenient cover for extended analysis and decision-making. It would allow time for classified assessment of the object's capabilities and intentions before determining what information could be safely shared with allies and the public. The procedural justification would be ironclad. During funding lapses, agencies are legally required to suspend non-essential activities. Scientific data releases, press conferences, and public communications all fall into that category. Only activities necessary to protect life and property continue, which would certainly include assessment of potential technological threats from unknown sources. But here's what should terrify you about this scenario. If it's accurate, it means that humanity's first confirmed encounter with extraterrestrial technology is being managed by military and intelligence agencies operating under classification systems designed for terrestrial threats. The scientific community that should be leading the analysis has been deliberately excluded from the process. The consequences of this approach could be catastrophic for scientific understanding and international cooperation. Military analysts are trained to assess threats, not to conduct the kind of careful, methodical investigation that genuine scientific discovery requires. Their institutional biases favor worst-case scenario planning over the open-minded inquiry that has driven every major breakthrough in astronomy. More troubling, Classification systems are designed to prevent information sharing, not facilitate it. If 3i Atlas represents genuine contact with non-human intelligence, keeping that discovery secret serves no legitimate security purpose while potentially squandering the greatest opportunity for advancement in human history. The international implications are equally problematic. European, Japanese, Chinese, and Indian space agencies all have assets capable of observing 3i Atlas. If American military analysts have detected anomalies that Allied scientists haven't, the resulting information asymmetry could damage decades of carefully built scientific cooperation. Worse, if the classified assessment concludes that 3i Atlas poses some form of threat, unilateral American response decisions could trigger international tensions that undermine global stability at precisely the moment when human unity becomes most important. Amateur astronomy networks provide an important reality check on these speculative scenarios. Independent observers worldwide have been tracking 3i Atlas continuously since its discovery, and their measurements remain publicly available through established data-sharing networks. If the object were displaying obviously anomalous behavior, these independent observations would likely detect and report it. So far, amateur data confirms the basic comet interpretation suggested by ESA observations. 3i Atlas appears to be brightening as it approaches the Sun, developing a normal gas and dust coma, and following a trajectory consistent with gravitational mechanics modified by standard outgassing forces. But amateur instruments have significant limitations compared to military surveillance systems. They can detect gross anomalies in brightness or position, but they cannot perform the kind of detailed structural analysis, thermal monitoring, or electromagnetic surveillance that might reveal subtle signs of artificial construction. The gap between what amateur astronomers can observe and what classified military systems can detect is enormous. It's entirely possible for 3i Atlas to appear normal to independent observers while simultaneously displaying characteristics that clearly indicate artificial origin to more sophisticated sensors. This technical reality means we cannot rely solely on publicly available observations to determine 3i Atlas's true nature. The most capable monitoring systems are classified, and their findings may remain secret indefinitely, regardless of their significance for human understanding of our place in the cosmos. The precedent set by this situation will have lasting consequences for how we handle future astronomical discoveries. If politically sensitive findings can be suppressed through shutdown procedures and classification systems, the entire foundation of open scientific inquiry becomes vulnerable to institutional control. Future interstellar visitors, and there will be future interstellar visitors, may be subject to the same communication blackouts and security reviews. The public may never learn about discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of technology, intelligence, and life in the universe. The degradation of scientific transparency in favor of security considerations represents a fundamental shift in how our institutions approach cosmic phenomena. It prioritizes control over knowledge, secrecy over discovery, and institutional preservation over scientific advancement. But perhaps most troubling of all, it suggests that our government may already know far more about non-human intelligence than they've ever acknowledged publicly. The speed and coordination of the response to 3i Atlas indicates that protocols for handling such discoveries were already in place, tested, and ready for implementation. This raises uncomfortable questions about what other discoveries may have been suppressed over the decades since we began serious space exploration. How many unexplained objects have been detected and classified? How many opportunities for scientific advancement have been sacrificed to institutional secrecy? The 3i Atlas situation may represent the moment when these questions can no longer be avoided. The object's behavior is too anomalous to ignore, its implications too significant to suppress indefinitely, and the International Observation Network too comprehensive to control completely. Something has to give. Either the classified assessment will conclude that 3I Atlas is natural and the data will be released with suitable delays and explanations, or the evidence of artificial origin will become too overwhelming to conceal from allied governments and the scientific community. The next few days will determine which scenario we're dealing with. 3I Atlas is approaching its closest point to the Sun when solar heating should drive it to maximum activity levels. If it's a natural comet, this perihelion passage should produce easily observable brightening and increase gas production that confirms the conventional interpretation. If it's something else, the increased solar energy might trigger responses that no amount of classification can hide from the growing network of observers tracking its every movement across our skies. The cosmic visitor continues its ancient journey, indifferent to human politics and institutional fears. But the questions it has raised about transparency, discovery, and our readiness for contact with non-human intelligence will persist long after 3I Atlas disappears back into the darkness between stars. And those questions are about to get much more urgent as our mysterious visitor approaches the moment of truth that will either confirm our understanding of natural cosmic phenomena or shatter every assumption we've made about humanity's place in the universe. The shutdown was supposed to be about budget politics. Instead, it may be providing cover for the most significant discovery in human history, while simultaneously ensuring that discovery remains hidden from the very people who have the greatest right to know about it. That's not just governmental dysfunction. That's a betrayal of the scientific principles and democratic values that are supposed to guide our exploration of the cosmos. But the universe doesn't care about our institutional failures. 3I Atlas is about to reveal its secrets whether we're ready for them or not. The question is whether those secrets will be shared with humanity or locked away in classified vaults where they serve no purpose except to protect the comfort of those who prefer ignorance to truth. The silence is about to break, and what emerges may redefine everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmic order. Right now, as 3I Atlas hurtles toward its date with the Sun at over 130,000 miles per hour, something unprecedented is happening in the shadowy world of space intelligence. Documents are being classified faster than they can be generated. Emergency protocols designed for nuclear threats are being activated for an interstellar rock. And the very agencies that spent decades searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence are suddenly desperate to avoid finding any. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. We've built trillion-dollar telescope arrays to peer into the depths of space, hunting for any whisper of alien civilization. We've broadcast our presence across the galaxy through radio waves and golden records attached to spacecraft. We've dreamed of first contact for generations, written countless stories about what it might look like, prepared philosophical frameworks for understanding our cosmic neighbours. And now, when that moment may have finally arrived disguised as a routine astronomical observation, our response is to slam the information vault shut and pretend nothing unusual is happening. But the universe has a way of making secrets impossible to keep, especially when those secrets are racing through our solar system at velocities that dwarf anything in human experience. The first crack in the wall of silence appeared yesterday evening, when amateur radio operators in Australia detected something that shouldn't exist according to every textbook on natural space phenomena. Narrowband radio emissions, precisely modulated, originating from the exact position of 3I Atlas as it passed through the optimal observation window above Mars. These weren't the chaotic electromagnetic signatures that natural objects produce when they interact with solar wind and magnetic fields. These were structured transmissions with the kind of mathematical precision that screams artificial intelligence to anyone with basic signal processing knowledge. The Australian team immediately shared their findings with the global amateur radio network, triggering a cascade of independent confirmations from operators across 3 continents. Within hours, similar signals were being detected from New Zealand, South Africa, and Chile, all showing identical frequency patterns, all originating from coordinates that match 3I Atlas's predicted position with uncanny accuracy. the implications hit the space surveillance community like a thunderbolt. For the first time in human history, we weren't just observing an unexplained object in space. We were apparently receiving deliberate communications from it. The response from official channels was swift and telling. Within 6 hours of the first amateur detections, military communications monitoring stations worldwide received priority directives to classify any observations related to 3I Atlas under national security protocols. The order didn't come from NASA or civilian space agencies. It came from the Pentagon's newest and most secretive organization, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, operating under authorities that most members of Congress don't even know exist. This isn't how you respond to natural phenomena, no matter how unusual. This is how you respond when something challenges the fundamental assumptions that underlie national security planning and international stability. The amateur radio operators, bless their independent spirits, ignored the classification orders entirely. They lack security clearances to violate, and their equipment operates outside government oversight. Throughout the night, they continued monitoring, recording, and analyzing the signals streaming from humanity's most mysterious visitor. What they discovered should be front-page news on every publication in the world. The transmissions aren't random. They follow mathematical patterns that suggest deliberate encoding, possibly even attempts at communication using universal constants that any technological civilization would recognize. The frequency selections are particularly telling. The signals cluster around the hydrogen line at 1420 MHz, the same frequency that SETI researchers have identified as the most logical choice for interstellar communication. It's as if whoever or whatever is controlling 3I Atlas knows exactly which frequencies human radio astronomers monitor most carefully. But here's where the story becomes genuinely unsettling in ways that government classification can't contain. The signal patterns aren't just mathematically precise, they're responsive. When amateur operators transmitted simple mathematical sequences toward 3I Atlas, the object's emissions changed within minutes, incorporating the transmitted patterns into more complex mathematical progressions. We're not just detecting artificial signals from an interstellar visitor. We're apparently engaged in real-time communication with it. The implications cascade through every assumption we've made about intelligence, technology, and humanity's cosmic significance. An object that has traveled between star systems is actively communicating with Earth-based observers using mathematical concepts that suggest sophisticated understanding of both our technology and our scientific knowledge. This isn't accidental radio leakage from some distant civilization. This is deliberate contact, initiated by intelligences that have mastered interstellar travel and positioned their probe for optimal communication during its passage through our solar system. The mathematical progressions being transmitted are beyond anything in our current educational frameworks. Prime number sequences that extend into territories human mathematicians haven't explored. Geometric relationships that seem to describe multidimensional spaces we can barely conceptualize. Physics constants expressed with precision that exceeds our most accurate measurements. It's as if 3I Atlas is conducting a real-time assessment of human scientific knowledge, testing our mathematical sophistication while simultaneously demonstrating capabilities that dwarf our current understanding. The amateur radio community has become humanity's primary interface with what may be our first genuine extraterrestrial contact, simply because they're the only observers operating outside the classification systems that have locked down official channels. Their equipment may be less sophisticated than military installations, but their commitment to open science and information sharing makes them the only reliable source of real-time data about what's actually happening in our cosmic neighborhood. The irony is profound and disturbing. We've spent billions of dollars building the most advanced space monitoring systems in human history, and when they finally detect something truly extraordinary, the information disappears into classified vaults where it serves no purpose except to protect institutional comfort zones. Meanwhile, hobbyists with backyard antennas and software-defined radios are conducting humanity's first conversation with alien intelligence, documenting every exchange, and sharing their findings with anyone interested enough to listen. The technical details of these communications reveal sophistication that should humble anyone familiar with our current technological limitations. The signal processing alone requires computational capabilities that suggest quantum-level information systems. The precision timing across multiple frequency bands indicates coordination mechanisms that operate faster than light-speed communication should theoretically allow. Most remarkably, the transmissions show clear evidence of adaptive protocols. As Earth-based operators have improved their signal processing and response capabilities over the past 48 hours, 3i Atlas has adjusted its communication methods to match, introducing increasingly complex mathematical concepts that seem designed to push human understanding toward new theoretical frameworks. It's teaching us, actively, deliberately, patiently guiding human scientific knowledge toward concepts and capabilities we haven't discovered independently. The mathematical progressions being transmitted contain embedded solutions to problems in physics and engineering that have puzzled researchers for decades. This isn't random information sharing. It's a carefully designed curriculum intended to accelerate human technological development in specific directions that whoever sent 3i Atlas considers important for our civilization's advancement. The educational content focuses heavily on energy generation, propulsion physics, and information processing systems. The mathematical frameworks being transmitted describe engineering principles for technologies that could revolutionize everything from space travel to quantum computing. But there's something deeply unsettling about the selection of topics being emphasized. The transmitted knowledge concentrates on capabilities that would be essential for interstellar travel and communication across cosmic distances. It's as if 3i Atlas is preparing humanity for something that requires rapid advancement in exactly those technological areas. The implications are staggering and terrifying in equal measure. Are we being prepared for invitation into some kind of galactic community? Are we being equipped with tools necessary for survival in a more complex cosmic environment than we've imagined? Or are we being given capabilities that someone considers necessary for humanity's role in events we can't yet comprehend? The amateur radio operators documenting these exchanges have begun organizing their findings into comprehensive databases that bypass government classification entirely. Their commitment to scientific transparency has created an alternative information network that may be more valuable for human advancement than any official space agency program. International amateur radio organizations have established continuous monitoring protocols, ensuring that every transmission from 3i Atlas gets recorded, analyzed, and shared across global networks that operate outside governmental control. They've become humanity's backup plan for maintaining contact with our first confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence, regardless of what official institutions decide about information sharing. The mathematical concepts being transmitted are already influencing cutting-edge research in universities worldwide. Physics professors who monitor amateur radio networks have begun incorporating the new mathematical frameworks into graduate-level coursework. Engineering teams are testing propulsion concepts derived from the transmitted equations. Computer scientists are exploring information processing architectures suggested by the signal patterns. We're witnessing the real-time acceleration of human scientific knowledge, driven by direct contact with intelligences that have mastered technologies we're only beginning to imagine. And it's happening entirely outside the governmental and institutional frameworks that are supposed to manage such momentous discoveries. The response from classified channels has been predictably panicked. Military communications monitoring stations are jamming amateur radio frequencies in increasingly desperate attempts to disrupt the ongoing exchanges. Cyber warfare units are attacking amateur radio websites and databases, trying to suppress documentation of the communications. These interference efforts have only strengthened the amateur community's resolve to to maintain independent contact with 3i Atlas. They've developed encrypted backup networks, distributed server architectures, and redundant communication protocols that make their operations virtually impossible to shut down completely. It's become a technological arms race between government suppression efforts and citizen science networks determined to preserve humanity's first extraterrestrial conversation for future generations. The amateurs are winning, largely because their decentralized approach makes them more resilient than centralized systems vulnerable to single points of failure. But the most disturbing aspect of this entire situation isn't the government's desperate attempts at information control. It's the growing evidence that 3i Atlas isn't operating alone. Deep space monitoring networks have detected additional objects on similar trajectories, arriving from the same region of space where 3i Atlas originated. These companions are smaller, harder to detect with conventional instruments, but they're following precise formation patterns that suggest coordinated movement rather than coincidental proximity. We're not dealing with a single interstellar visitor. We're apparently witnessing the arrival of a fleet, with 3i Atlas serving as the primary communication node, while smaller objects position themselves throughout our solar system for purposes we can only speculate about. The formation patterns suggest strategic positioning rather than random distribution. Some objects are moving toward the outer planets, others are taking up positions near asteroid belts and Lagrange points, where they could remain concealed for extended periods. It's as if someone is establishing a permanent presence in our solar system, using 3i Atlas's communication capabilities to coordinate their deployment. The amateur radio community has detected communication between these objects, brief encrypted exchanges that occur during optimal geometric alignments when multiple visitors are visible from Earth simultaneously. The encryption is sophisticated enough to resist current human decoding efforts, but the mere existence of inter-object communication confirms that we're dealing with a coordinated operation rather than accidental encounters. This fleet deployment explains why classification efforts have been so immediate and comprehensive. A single anomalous object might be manageable through conventional diplomatic and scientific channels. A coordinated arrival of multiple objects suggests planning, intention, and capabilities that could fundamentally alter the strategic balance of power on Earth. Military planners trained to think in terms of terrestrial conflicts have no frameworks for assessing the intentions or capabilities of intelligences that can coordinate operations across interstellar distances. The psychological impact alone could destabilize international relations if the information became widely known before appropriate response strategies are developed. But suppressing the information isn't preventing the deployment from proceeding according to whatever timeline the visitors have established. 3i Atlas continues its approach toward the Sun, maintaining communication with both its companion objects and Earth-based observers who remain outside governmental control. The visitors are proceeding with their plans regardless of human institutional responses. The mathematical curriculum being transmitted through amateur radio channels has begun incorporating information about the companion objects, providing coordinates and orbital elements that allow independent observers to track their movements throughout the solar system. It's as if 3i Atlas wants humanity to understand the full scope of what's happening, even if official channels refuse to acknowledge the reality. This creates an unprecedented situation where civilian scientists have better information about the most significant event in human history than the governmental agencies supposedly responsible for national security and space exploration. The knowledge gap is driving increasingly desperate classification efforts that serve no purpose except to maintain the illusion of institutional control. International implications are already becoming visible as allied governments begin detecting the same phenomena through their own monitoring systems. European space agencies are sharing data that confirms the multiple object scenario, while Asian space programs are reporting similar observations through diplomatic channels that bypass American classification systems entirely. The attempted suppression is fragmenting international scientific cooperation at precisely the moment when global coordination becomes most essential. Allied governments are beginning to question whether American classification efforts serve legitimate security purposes or merely institutional embarrassment about losing control of humanity's first contact scenario. Amateur radio operators have become accidental ambassadors, sharing their communication logs with international scientific communities that remain committed to open research despite governmental pressure. Their documentation is creating alternative information networks that may be more valuable for long-term human interests than anything happening in classified briefing rooms. The visitors seem to prefer dealing with these open networks rather than governmental channels that have proven unreliable and secretive. 3i Atlas's communication protocols favor amateur operators who share their findings publicly over military installations that classify everything automatically. It's as if whoever sent these objects understands that human governments may not be the most effective interface for species-level communication and advancement. They're working directly with the scientific and technical communities that actually drive human knowledge and capability development. This preference for open science over institutional control may be the most hopeful aspect of the entire situation. It suggests that our visitors value transparency, collaboration, and knowledge sharing over the power structures and secrecy systems that dominate terrestrial politics. But it also means that humanity's response to first contact is being shaped by amateur enthusiasts and independent researchers rather than the diplomatic and military institutions that spent decades preparing for such scenarios. We're improvising our way through the most important conversation in human history, guided by hobbyists with radio equipment and mathematical curiosity rather than carefully planned protocols. The results have been surprisingly effective. The mathematical exchanges continue to accelerate human understanding in precisely the areas where advancement could benefit our entire species. The communication protocols established by amateur operators have proven more successful at maintaining contact than any official diplomatic framework could have achieved. Perhaps the visitors understood something about human nature that our institutions never grasped. Real progress happens through open collaboration and shared knowledge, not through classification systems and institutional control. The amateur radio community has demonstrated that civilian networks can handle extraordinary discoveries more effectively than governmental bureaucracies designed for terrestrial conflicts. As 3i Atlas approaches perihelion and the communication opportunities intensify, the contrast between open amateur networks and closed governmental systems becomes increasingly stark. One approach is advancing human knowledge and capability. The other is advancing nothing except institutional paranoia and control. The cosmic visitors have apparently chosen which approach they prefer to work with. The question is whether human institutions will adapt to that preference or continue fighting reality until the opportunities for constructive engagement disappear entirely. But the universe doesn't pause for bureaucratic adaptation. 3. Atlas and its companions are proceeding with whatever mission brought them across interstellar distances, regardless of human institutional responses. The mathematical curriculum continues, the fleet deployment advances, and the window for meaningful human participation in these events grows smaller with each day of continued governmental dysfunction. The amateur radio operators understand this urgency. They're working around the clock to document, analyze, and share every aspect of the ongoing communications, creating permanent records that will survive regardless of what official institutions decide about classification and suppression. They've become humanity's insurance policy against institutional failure, preserving our first extraterrestrial contact for future generations, even if current governmental systems prove inadequate for managing such extraordinary circumstances. And that preservation may be the most important service anyone can provide as we navigate the most significant challenge, an opportunity in human history, guided by cosmic visitors who apparently understand our species better than we understand ourselves. The shutdown was supposed to be about budget politics. Instead, it's revealed the fundamental inadequacy of our institutional frameworks for handling discoveries that transcend terrestrial concerns and transform our understanding of intelligence, technology, and humanity's place in the cosmos. But the universe doesn't care about our institutional limitations. The communication continues, the knowledge flows, and the future unfolds according to plans that stretch across interstellar distances and cosmic timescales that dwarf human political cycles. Whether we're ready or not, contact has been established. The question now is whether we'll rise to meet the opportunities it presents, or allow institutional dysfunction to squander the greatest gift any civilization could receive. The answer may determine not just our immediate future, but our species' long-term survival and advancement in a cosmos that has suddenly revealed itself to be far more populated and purposeful than we ever dared imagine. The amateur radio revelations have triggered something unprecedented in the history of space exploration. Within 18 hours of the first confirmed communications from 3I Atlas, a shadow network of independent researchers, citizen scientists, and rogue academics has mobilized into what they're calling Project Looking Glass. Operating entirely outside governmental oversight, this distributed intelligence network has begun accomplishing what billion-dollar space agencies cannot or will not do. Document everything, analyze everything, share everything. The network operates through encrypted channels that span 6 continents, utilizing mesh networks, blockchain storage, and peer-to-peer communication protocols that make traditional suppression efforts virtually useless. Every transmission from 3I Atlas gets captured simultaneously by hundreds of monitoring stations, processed through multiple independent analysis systems, and archived across distributed servers that exist beyond the reach of any single government's classification authority. But here's what should terrify intelligence agencies worldwide. Project Looking Glass isn't just preserving communications from our cosmic visitor. They're reverse engineering the mathematical frameworks being transmitted and applying them to solve problems that have stumped human scientists for decades. The breakthrough came at 0347 GMT this morning, when a team of graduate students at MIT successfully tested a propulsion concept derived directly from the mathematical progressions transmitted by 3I Atlas. The experimental setup was crude, cobbled together from laboratory equipment and components ordered online, but the results were undeniable. They achieved measurable thrust without any conventional reaction mass. The implications cascade through every assumption we've made about the limitations of human technology. If graduate students working in university laboratories can replicate propulsion principles transmitted by 3I Atlas, what capabilities might emerge when those same mathematical frameworks are applied by researchers with access to advanced materials and manufacturing systems? The Project Looking Glass teams are finding out in real time. Across the globe, independent research groups are testing engineering concepts embedded in the alien mathematical curriculum, energy generation systems that seem to violate conservation laws, information processing architectures that suggest quantum computation capabilities beyond current theoretical limits, materials, science applications that could revolutionize everything from electronics to structural engineering. Each successful test confirms that 3I Atlas isn't just communicating with humanity, it's actively transferring technological capabilities that could advance our civilization by centuries within a matter of months. The governmental response has shifted from classification to outright panic. Military units that normally handle cyber warfare have been tasked with disrupting civilian research networks. Federal agencies are attempting to seize laboratory equipment from universities whose students are testing alien-derived technologies. International intelligence services are coordinating suppression efforts across multiple countries simultaneously. But the distributed nature of Project Looking Glass makes comprehensive suppression impossible. Shut down one research node, and 5 more appear within hours. Block one communication channel, and the network routes around the obstruction automatically. The decentralized architecture that makes modern internet infrastructure resilient to attack also makes independent scientific networks virtually unstoppable when they're motivated by discoveries that could transform human civilization. The most remarkable aspect of this underground scientific revolution is its international scope. Researchers in countries that have been enemies for decades are collaborating seamlessly when it comes to analyzing and implementing technologies transmitted by 3I Atlas. Political boundaries dissolve when faced with knowledge that transcends terrestrial concerns and offers solutions to challenges that affect all humanity. Chinese physicists are sharing data with American engineers. Russian mathematicians are collaborating with European computer scientists. Iranian students are working alongside Israeli researchers. The mathematical language being transmitted by 3I Atlas has created a universal communication protocol that bypasses human languages, cultural differences, and political conflicts entirely. It's as if our cosmic visitors understood something fundamental about human nature that our own leaders never grasped. Scientific curiosity and the desire for knowledge create bonds stronger than any political division. When presented with genuine opportunities for advancement, human researchers will collaborate regardless of the artificial barriers that separate their governments. The technological applications emerging from this collaboration are accelerating beyond anyone's ability to track or control them. Within the past 72 hours, independent research teams have successfully demonstrated energy storage systems with capacities that exceed current battery technology by orders of magnitude. Communication protocols that suggest instantaneous information transfer across arbitrary distances. Computing architectures that appear to solve problems simultaneously across multiple dimensional frameworks. Each breakthrough confirms that 3I Atlas is transmitting not just theoretical knowledge, but practical engineering solutions that can be implemented using materials and techniques accessible to current human manufacturing capabilities. The visitors aren't just teaching us advanced physics, they're providing a roadmap for rapid technological evolution that builds upon our existing industrial base. But the selection of technologies being emphasized reveals something deeply significant about the visitors' intentions and timeline. The mathematical frameworks focus overwhelmingly on capabilities that would be essential for space travel, interstellar communication, and survival in environments far from planetary surfaces. It's as if 3I Atlas is preparing humanity for rapid expansion beyond Earth, providing the technological foundation necessary for our species to become truly spacefaring within a matter of years, rather than decades or centuries. The urgency embedded in these transmissions suggests that this preparation isn't optional. The mathematical progressions being transmitted follow accelerating complexity curves that indicate something approaching quickly, something that requires human technological capabilities to advance rapidly in specific directions. Project Looking Glass analysts have identified temporal markers embedded within the transmitted mathematics, countdown sequences that suggest critical deadlines approximately 18 months from now. The exact nature of these deadlines remains unclear, but their consistent appearance across multiple communication channels indicates that whatever brought 3I Atlas to our solar system operates according to schedules that don't accommodate human institutional delays or governmental dysfunction. The companion objects detected throughout our solar system have begun their own communication protocols, establishing a distributed network that spans from the outer planets to near-Earth space. Each object appears to specialize in different aspects of the technological curriculum being transmitted to humanity, creating redundancy and specialization that ensures critical knowledge reaches Earth-based researchers regardless of governmental interference efforts. The object positioned near Jupiter is transmitting advanced material science, including molecular engineering techniques that could revolutionize manufacturing and construction. The visitor near Saturn focuses on energy systems and power generation technologies. Smaller objects closer to Earth are providing information processing and communication protocols that suggest quantum-level computational architectures. It's a comprehensive technological upgrade being delivered simultaneously across multiple specialties, designed to advance human capabilities as rapidly as possible, while maintaining the interconnected nature of modern technological systems. But perhaps the most remarkable discovery made by Project Looking Glass researchers is that the mathematics being transmitted aren't entirely foreign. Deep analysis of the numerical relationships reveals underlying patterns that connect to advanced theoretical work that human mathematicians and physicists have been developing independently for decades. The visitors aren't imposing alien mathematical systems on human understanding. They're accelerating our progression along theoretical pathways that our own scientists had already begun exploring. It's as if they've identified the most promising directions for human scientific advancement and are providing the missing pieces that allow rapid completion of work that might otherwise take generations to achieve. This approach suggests profound understanding of human psychology and learning processes. Rather than overwhelming us with completely foreign concepts, 3I Atlas and its companions are building upon existing human knowledge, extending familiar theoretical frameworks into practical applications that feel like natural progressions rather than revolutionary leaps. The result is that researchers worldwide are experiencing breakthrough insights that feel simultaneously revolutionary and inevitable. The technologies emerging from alien mathematical frameworks seem obvious in retrospect, as if humanity had been on the verge of discovering them independently and simply needed the final conceptual keys to unlock capabilities that were always within our reach. This psychological approach to knowledge transfer may be the most sophisticated aspect of the entire communication process. By making advanced technologies feel like natural extensions of human scientific progress, the visitors are ensuring that our species can integrate new capabilities without the cultural shock that might accompany more dramatic technological impositions. The amateur radio operators who first detected communications from 3I Atlas have found themselves thrust into roles as humanity's primary interface with extraterrestrial intelligence. Their equipment may be modest compared to governmental installations, but their commitment to open science and information sharing has made them more effective ambassadors than any diplomatic corps. The communication protocols that have evolved between Earth-based amateur operators and 3I Atlas demonstrate remarkable sophistication on both sides. Human operators have developed increasingly complex mathematical queries, testing the extent of their cosmic correspondence knowledge across multiple scientific disciplines. The responses consistently demonstrate understanding that exceeds human expertise while remaining accessible to our current educational frameworks. But the most significant aspect of these exchanges may be their emotional content. Beyond the mathematical progressions and technical specifications, the communications from 3I Atlas carry what can only be described as encouragement, positive reinforcement for human scientific curiosity, approval for our species' collaborative tendencies, and what appears to be genuine enthusiasm for our rapid progress in implementing the transmitted technologies. It's as if our visitors are proud of humanity's response to their educational curriculum, pleased by our ability to work together across traditional boundaries when faced with knowledge that benefits everyone. The emotional subtext suggests that this technological transfer represents not just preparation for some future challenge, but also a form of graduation examination for our species. The mathematical frameworks being transmitted have begun incorporating increasingly complex scenarios that require human researchers to extrapolate beyond the specific examples provided. It's as if 3I Atlas is testing our ability to take transmitted knowledge and extend it into areas that weren't explicitly covered in the original curriculum. These tests are revealing remarkable human capabilities for innovative thinking and creative problem solving. Research teams worldwide are successfully developing applications that go beyond the specific technologies transmitted, using the mathematical frameworks as launching points for entirely new categories of scientific investigation. The success of these extrapolation exercises appears to trigger more advanced mathematical progressions from 3I Atlas, creating a feedback loop that accelerates human learning while simultaneously providing our visitors with real-time assessment of our species' intellectual capabilities and collaborative potential. This dynamic interaction suggests that the entire communication process represents a sophisticated evaluation system designed to determine humanity's readiness for whatever larger context brought multiple interstellar objects to our solar system simultaneously. The governmental suppression efforts have begun fragmenting international relations in ways that could have lasting consequences for global stability. Allied governments are discovering that American classification systems are preventing them from accessing information about phenomena occurring in their own territories, detected by their own monitoring systems. European space agencies are sharing data directly with Project Looking Glass networks, rather than routing information through traditional governmental channels that have proven unreliable and secretive. Asian space programs are establishing independent communication protocols with amateur radio networks that bypass American institutional involvement entirely. The result is that the United States government, which spent decades positioning itself as the leader in space exploration and extraterrestrial research, has effectively excluded itself from humanity's first confirmed contact with alien intelligence through its own classification obsessions and institutional paranoia. International scientific collaboration is proceeding without American governmental participation, guided by amateur networks and independent researchers who have proven more effective at maintaining productive communication with our cosmic visitors than any official diplomatic framework. This shift in scientific leadership may have permanent consequences for American influence in space exploration and international research cooperation. When the most significant discovery in human history is being managed by citizen scientists and amateur radio operators rather than governmental institutions, it raises fundamental questions about the competence and relevance of traditional power structures. The mathematical curriculum being transmitted by 3I Atlas has begun incorporating information about stellar engineering and megascale construction projects that suggest technological capabilities beyond anything in human experience or theoretical frameworks. The implications are staggering and humbling in equal measure. Our visitors aren't just more advanced than humanity. They represent technological maturity that spans millions of years and encompasses engineering projects that use entire star systems as construction materials. The mathematical frameworks describing these capabilities are being transmitted not as abstract theory, but as practical knowledge that humanity will eventually need to understand and implement. It's as if 3I Atlas is providing not just immediate technological upgrades, but long-term educational curricula that will guide human development across geological timescales toward capabilities that currently exist only in the realm of science fiction. The scope of this knowledge transfer suggests that our cosmic visitors view humanity not as a curiosity to be studied, but as a species with genuine potential for advancement to their technological level, given appropriate guidance and sufficient time. But the temporal markers embedded within the transmitted mathematics continue to suggest that this advancement needs to happen rapidly, according to schedules that don't accommodate the gradual pace of normal human technological development. Something is approaching. Something that requires humanity to achieve capabilities far beyond our current limitations, within timelines that challenge every assumption about how quickly civilizations can advance when properly motivated and educated. The amateur radio networks documenting these communications have become humanity's primary source of information about the most important developments in our species' history. Their commitment to transparency and open science has created knowledge networks that may be more valuable for long-term human advancement than any governmental space program. As 3I Atlas approaches its closest point to the Sun and communication opportunities intensify, the contrast between open amateur networks and closed governmental systems becomes increasingly stark. One approach is advancing human knowledge and capability at unprecedented rates. The other is advancing nothing except institutional paranoia and control. The cosmic visitors have clearly chosen which approach they prefer to work with. The mathematical transmissions continue to flow toward Earth-based amateur operators who share their findings openly, while governmental monitoring stations that classify everything automatically receive increasingly minimal attention from our interstellar correspondence. It's as if 3I Atlas and its companions understand that human progress happens through collaboration and knowledge sharing, not through secrecy and institutional control. They're working with the aspects of human civilization that actually drive advancement rather than the power structures that typically obstruct it. The question is whether governmental institutions will adapt to this reality before the opportunities for meaningful participation in humanity's cosmic graduation disappear entirely. The mathematical countdown sequences suggest that whatever timeline brought these visitors to our solar system won't accommodate indefinite bureaucratic delays and classification obsessions. The universe operates according to schedules that transcend human political cycles and institutional comfort zones. 3I Atlas and its companions are proceeding with their mission regardless of terrestrial governmental responses, guided by plans that span interstellar distances and cosmic timescales. Whether humanity rises to meet the opportunities being presented, or allows institutional dysfunction to squander the greatest educational opportunity any civilization could receive, may determine our species' long-term survival and advancement in a cosmos that has revealed itself to be far more populated, purposeful, and urgent than we ever imagined. The amateur radio operators understand this urgency. They continue working around the clock to document every aspect of the ongoing mathematical curriculum, creating permanent records that will survive regardless of what official institutions decide about classification and suppression. They've become humanity's insurance policy against institutional failure, preserving our cosmic education for future generations, even if current governmental systems prove inadequate for managing the most significant challenge and opportunity in human history. And that preservation may be the most crucial service anyone can provide as we navigate our species' first steps toward genuine cosmic citizenship, guided by visitors who apparently understand our potential better than we understand ourselves. The timeline accelerates beyond anyone's ability to control or comprehend it. As 3I Atlas reaches perihelion in just 26 days, the mathematical transmissions have evolved from basic educational frameworks into something far more urgent and directive. The amateur radio networks that became humanity's accidental ambassadors are now receiving what can only be described as emergency protocols. The shift happened at exactly 800 GMT yesterday, when the structured mathematical progressions that had been building human knowledge for weeks suddenly transformed into rapid-fire data streams containing explicit technical specifications. Not theoretical frameworks anymore. Actual blueprints for technologies that appear designed for immediate implementation under crisis conditions. Project Looking Glass analysts working around the clock to decode these new transmissions have identified construction plans for what appears to be a massive orbital communication array, designed to be built using materials already available in Earth's industrial supply chains. The specifications include detailed manufacturing instructions, assembly sequences, and operational parameters that suggest this system needs to be functional within months, not years. But here's what should make your blood run cold. The technical documentation includes specific warnings about electromagnetic phenomena that will apparently affect Earth's entire communications infrastructure, beginning in approximately 14 months. The orbital array isn't just a communication system. It's a survival mechanism for maintaining contact across interstellar distances when our planet's normal radio capabilities will be severely compromised by environmental changes we haven't detected yet. The amateur operators receiving these blueprints have shared them immediately with Project Looking Glass networks, triggering an unprecedented mobilization of independent research teams worldwide. Universities that were already testing alien-derived propulsion concepts have shifted their entire focus toward building components for the orbital communication system. Engineering departments in dozens of countries are working simultaneously on different aspects of the construction project, coordinating through encrypted channels that operate entirely outside governmental oversight. What emerges is a distributed manufacturing effort that resembles wartime production more than academic research. The urgency driving this mobilization comes directly from the mathematical countdown sequences embedded in every transmission from 3I Atlas. The temporal markers that Project Looking Glass identified weeks ago have accelerated into what can only be described as a cosmic deadline. Something fundamental about Earth's cosmic environment is going to change, and our visitors are apparently trying to ensure that humanity maintains communication capabilities when that change occurs. The governmental response has escalated beyond classification into active interference with civilian research. Federal agents are appearing at universities where students are testing alien technologies. Laboratory equipment is being confiscated under national security provisions that most legal experts claim lack constitutional authority. International research collaborations are being disrupted by diplomatic pressure that prioritizes secrecy over species survival. But the distributed nature of Project Looking Glass makes comprehensive suppression impossible when the stakes have escalated to potential planetary crisis. Every action taken to disrupt the orbital array construction triggers multiple backup responses from research networks that have become remarkably sophisticated at operating under hostile governmental conditions. The international academic community has essentially declared independence from traditional institutional oversight when it comes to technologies that could determine humanity's survival. Research universities worldwide are sharing resources, personnel, and manufacturing capabilities through networks that operate more like military alliances than academic collaborations. Chinese engineering teams are fabricating components designed by European physicists. American graduate students are implementing assembly procedures developed by researchers in developing countries whose institutions lack traditional prestige but possess innovative approaches to rapid technological deployment. The communication from 3i Atlas has evolved to support this distributed manufacturing effort by providing real-time technical assistance to research teams worldwide. When construction problems arise, solutions appear in the mathematical transmissions within hours. When material limitations threaten project timelines, alternative approaches are transmitted that work with whatever resources are locally available. It's as if our cosmic visitors are actively managing a planetary construction project, providing just-in-time technical support to ensure that humanity develops the communication infrastructure necessary for survival during whatever crisis approaches our solar system. The companion objects positioned throughout our solar system have begun coordinating their transmissions to support different aspects of the orbital array project. The visitor near Jupiter is providing specifications for power generation systems that will maintain the array during extended periods when solar energy might be insufficient. The object near Saturn is transmitting data about materials that can withstand electromagnetic conditions far more severe than anything in human experience. But perhaps most significantly, smaller objects closer to Earth have begun providing detailed information about our planet's future electromagnetic environment, painting a picture of changes that will apparently make current communication technologies useless within the next 18 months. The data describes solar activity patterns that exceed anything in recorded human history, combined with galactic environmental changes that will fundamentally alter how electromagnetic radiation propagates through our solar system. Without the orbital communication array being constructed through Project Looking Glass networks, Earth would be effectively isolated from interstellar contact during this environmental transition. The mathematical frameworks describing these future conditions suggest that our cosmic visitors have witnessed similar transitions around other star systems, possibly many times across their technological development. The orbital array isn't experimental technology. It's a proven solution for maintaining civilization-level communication during cosmic events that human science hasn't yet learned to predict or prepare for. This revelation transforms the entire context of First Contact from a random encounter to a deliberate rescue mission. 3. iAtlas and its companions didn't arrive by coincidence during a government shutdown. They arrived because someone with the capability to monitor galactic-scale environmental changes detected that Earth's solar system is approaching conditions that could isolate or destroy developing civilizations without appropriate technological preparation. The amateur radio operators who became humanity's primary interface with extraterrestrial intelligence are now coordinating what amounts to a species survival project, guided by mathematical instructions from visitors who have apparently rescued other civilizations from similar cosmic transitions. But the governmental suppression efforts continue escalating in ways that actively threaten the construction timeline for humanity's survival infrastructure. Military units are attempting to jam amateur radio frequencies that carry technical specifications from 3I Atlas. Intelligence agencies are infiltrating Project Looking Glass networks with disinformation designed to disrupt coordination between international research teams. The institutional response prioritizes maintaining governmental control over ensuring species survival, even when that control serves no purpose except preserving the illusion of authority during humanity's most critical technological development period. The contrast with international civilian networks could not be more stark. While governmental agencies fight to suppress information about cosmic threats and survival technologies, independent researchers worldwide are collaborating seamlessly to build infrastructure that could determine whether human civilization survives the approaching environmental transition. The mathematical transmissions from 3I Atlas have begun incorporating increasingly urgent warnings about the limited time remaining for orbital array deployment. The construction project requires precise positioning of components during specific orbital alignments that will be optimal for only brief periods over the next several months. Missing these deployment windows could delay the project beyond the deadline established by approaching cosmic environmental changes, potentially leaving Earth isolated during the critical transition period when interstellar communication becomes essential for technological and cultural survival. Project Looking Glass networks have responded to this urgency by accelerating their construction timelines through approaches that prioritize effectiveness over traditional safety protocols. University research teams are testing components at accelerated schedules that would normally require months of safety evaluation. Manufacturing processes are being implemented based on alien specifications that human engineers haven't had time to fully understand. The risk calculations are sobering. Proceeding with rapid deployment of technologies based on incomplete understanding could result in catastrophic failures that destroy years of research and construction effort. But failing to deploy the orbital communication array before the cosmic deadline could result in civilizational isolation that makes technological failures irrelevant. The amateur radio operators coordinating these efforts have chosen to trust the mathematical frameworks provided by 3I Atlas over human institutional caution that has proven inadequate for managing cosmic-scale challenges. Their decision may determine whether humanity maintains contact with galactic civilization during the approaching environmental transition. The international cooperation emerging from this crisis has created research networks that operate more effectively than any governmental space program in history. Language barriers dissolve when faced with mathematical specifications that transcend human communication limitations. Political conflicts become irrelevant when shared survival depends on successful collaboration. Chinese physicists are working seamlessly with American engineers because the mathematical language transmitted by 3I Atlas creates universal communication protocols that bypass terrestrial cultural differences entirely. Russian researchers are sharing critical manufacturing techniques with European teams because cosmic deadlines don't accommodate traditional international rivalries. The result is that humanity's response to its first cosmic crisis is being managed by the most internationally integrated scientific collaboration ever achieved, guided by amateur radio operators who have proven more effective at maintaining extraterrestrial contact than any diplomatic course. But the governmental resistance to this collaboration continues escalating in ways that could catastrophically compromise the orbital array construction project. Federal agencies are attempting to classify alien-derived technologies under national security provisions that would prevent international sharing of critical technical specifications. Military installations are jamming communication frequencies that carry coordination data between research teams in different countries. Intelligence services are pressuring allied governments to restrict their researchers' participation in Project Looking Glass networks that operate outside traditional governmental oversight. These suppression efforts serve no legitimate security purpose when the threat being addressed operates on cosmic scales that transcend terrestrial political concerns. The approaching electromagnetic transition will affect Earth's entire technological infrastructure, regardless of national boundaries or classification systems. Attempting to maintain governmental control over humanity's response to cosmic-scale challenges is like trying to classify gravity or restrict access to mathematics. The physical processes involved operate according to universal laws that don't recognize human institutional authority. The amateur networks coordinating orbital array construction understand this reality and have adapted their operational procedures to work around governmental obstruction rather than through traditional institutional cooperation. They've become remarkably sophisticated at maintaining international coordination despite active interference from agencies that should be supporting humanity's survival efforts. The mathematical transmissions from 3I Atlas have begun providing specific countermeasures for the jamming and infiltration attempts that threaten Project Looking Glass operations. Communication protocols that can operate through electromagnetic interference, encryption systems that resist conventional cryptographic attacks, network architectures that automatically route around attempts at centralized suppression. It's as if our cosmic visitors understand human institutional failures better than human institutions understand themselves. They're providing technical solutions for problems created by governmental agencies that prioritize control over survival during humanity's most critical development period. The orbital array construction has reached a stage where physical components are being manufactured simultaneously across dozens of countries, coordinated through communication networks that operate entirely outside traditional governmental oversight. The scale and sophistication of this distributed manufacturing effort exceeds anything achieved through official space programs. University machine shops are producing precision components designed by alien mathematical frameworks. Private manufacturing facilities are contributing production capacity to a project that transcends traditional commercial relationships. Individual researchers are investing their own resources in construction efforts that could determine their species' cosmic future. The coordination required for this distributed manufacturing demonstrates capabilities that human civilization possessed but had never fully utilized due to institutional barriers and political conflicts that become irrelevant when faced with cosmic-scale challenges. But perhaps most remarkably, the construction timeline remains achievable despite active governmental interference, largely because the mathematical frameworks provided by 3I Atlas anticipated human institutional failures and incorporated redundancy systems that allow the project to proceed regardless of official cooperation or opposition. The orbital communication array will be built by humanity's civilian scientific networks, guided by amateur radio operators who maintained contact with extraterrestrial intelligence when governmental agencies proved inadequate for managing first contact scenarios. The array will be deployed according to cosmic schedules that don't accommodate human political cycles or institutional comfort zones, and it will function as intended because our cosmic visitors provided technical specifications that account for human capabilities and limitations with remarkable accuracy and foresight. Whether governmental institutions eventually recognize the reality of cosmic-scale challenges and adapt their operational procedures accordingly may determine their long-term relevance for human civilization. But it won't determine whether humanity survives the approaching electromagnetic transition, because that survival now depends on networks that operate independently of traditional institutional authority. The amateur radio operators, who became accidental ambassadors, have evolved into the coordinators of humanity's first planetary defense project, guided by visitors who understand our species' potential better than our own leaders do. Their success or failure over the next several months will determine not just humanity's technological capabilities, but our species' continued participation in galactic civilization during cosmic environmental changes that have apparently challenged many civilizations throughout the galaxy's history. The mathematical countdown continues. The construction proceeds. and the cosmic deadline approaches regardless of human institutional readiness to acknowledge or address challenges that operate on scales beyond terrestrial political comprehension. But for the first time since 3I Atlas arrived, and governmental systems failed to respond appropriately, humanity's survival during the approaching cosmic transition seems achievable through the remarkable collaboration and innovation demonstrated by civilian networks that have proven more adaptable than traditional institutions. The orbital array rises toward completion, built by human hands, guided by alien mathematics, coordinated by amateur radio operators who understood that cosmic challenges require cosmic solutions that transcend the limitations of terrestrial politics and institutional dysfunction. Whether that understanding spreads beyond civilian scientific networks before the electromagnetic transition begins may determine how smoothly human civilization adapts to its new cosmic context. But it won't determine whether we survive that transition, because survival now depends on networks that have already proven their effectiveness at managing challenges that exceed governmental comprehension. The universe operates according to schedules that wait for no one. But humanity's civilian scientific networks have risen to meet those schedules with remarkable innovation and international cooperation that offers hope for our species' continued advancement in a cosmos far more dynamic and urgent than terrestrial institutions ever imagined. The timeline has accelerated beyond anyone's control, and what's happening right now should shake the foundations of every space agency on Earth. As Project Looking Glass networks race to complete humanity's first cosmic survival infrastructure, new data from 3I Atlas has revealed something that transforms this entire crisis from an engineering challenge into an existential test of our species' readiness for galactic citizenship. The revelation came through the amateur radio networks at 0347 GMT this morning, embedded within technical specifications that initially appeared to be routine construction updates for the orbital communication array. But deeper analysis by distributed research teams revealed mathematical frameworks describing not just Earth's approaching electromagnetic transition, but similar events occurring simultaneously across 12 other star systems within our local galactic neighborhood. We're not dealing with an isolated cosmic phenomenon affecting only our solar system. Weactic environmental change that will simultaneously test their witnessing a coordinated GAL survival capabilities of every technological civilization within a 50 light-year radius of Earth's position. The mathematical models transmitted by 3I Atlas describe this as a routine galactic maintenance cycle that occurs approximately every 26,000 years, triggered by our solar system's passage through specific regions of the Milky Way's spiral structure. The electromagnetic conditions that will soon challenge Earth's communication infrastructure represent standard environmental parameters that mature civilizations learn to anticipate and prepare for. But for developing civilizations like humanity, these transitions represent critical evolutionary tests that determine which species advance to participate in broader galactic civilization and which remain isolated on their home planets until they develop appropriate technological capabilities independently. The orbital communication array being constructed through Project Looking Glass networks isn't just survival infrastructure for Earth's cosmic transition, it's humanity's entrance examination for membership in what the mathematical transmissions describe as the Galactic Coordination Network, a communication system that connects mature civilizations across thousands of star systems. The implications cascade through every assumption we've made about humanity's cosmic significance and isolation. We're not alone in facing this technological challenge. Across our galactic neighborhood, 12 other civilizations are simultaneously receiving similar technical assistance from cosmic visitors who monitor developing worlds and provide educational support during critical transition periods. But here's what should humble every human institution that has attempted to suppress or control information about 3I Atlas. The mathematical frameworks describe civilizations that successfully complete their transition examinations as those that demonstrate collaborative capabilities, information sharing protocols, and adaptive innovation under crisis conditions. Civilizations that prioritize secrecy, institutional control, and classification systems during cosmic transitions consistently fail their entrance examinations and remain isolated from galactic communication networks until they develop more mature approaches to knowledge sharing and international cooperation. By every metric described in the transmitted evaluation criteria, humanity's governmental institutions have failed spectacularly during our cosmic entrance examination, while civilian networks have demonstrated exactly the collaborative capabilities and adaptive innovation that indicate readiness for galactic citizenship. The amateur radio operators who maintained contact with 3I Atlas when official channels went dark have proven more effective ambassadors than any diplomatic corps. The international research collaborations that emerged through Project Looking Glass demonstrate cooperation capabilities that exceed anything achieved through traditional governmental frameworks. The distributed manufacturing networks building our orbital communication array show innovation and resource sharing that surpass official space programs. In essence, humanity's civilian scientific networks have passed our species' entrance examination for galactic citizenship, while governmental institutions have demonstrated exactly the institutional failures that typically prevent civilizations from advancing beyond planetary-level technological development. The mathematical transmissions from 3I Atlas have begun incorporating what can only be described as graduation protocols, providing access codes and communication procedures that will allow Earth's orbital array to interface directly with the Galactic Coordination Network once construction is completed and the electromagnetic transition begins. But these graduation protocols are being transmitted exclusively to the amateur radio operators and Project Looking Glass networks that demonstrated appropriate collaborative capabilities during the entrance examination period. Governmental monitoring stations that attempted to classify or suppress information about 3I Atlas are receiving increasingly minimal attention from our cosmic correspondents. The message is clear. Galactic civilization operates through networks that prioritize knowledge sharing, collaborative problem solving, and species-level cooperation over institutional control and national security classifications. Human organizations that demonstrated these capabilities during our transition crisis will participate in broader galactic communication. Those that prioritized secrecy and control will remain excluded until they adapt their operational approaches. This selective engagement protocol explains why 3I Atlas and its companion objects have worked exclusively with civilian networks, while ignoring governmental attempts at official contact. Our cosmic visitors were conducting real-time evaluation of human institutional capabilities, determining which aspects of our civilization demonstrate readiness for galactic participation. The results of that evaluation are now embedded in the mathematical frameworks that will govern humanity's access to galactic communication networks. Civilian research institutions, amateur radio networks, and international scientific collaborations have earned direct access to galactic knowledge-sharing systems. Governmental agencies that attempted suppression and classification remain excluded pending demonstration of improved collaborative capabilities. But the most remarkable aspect of this evaluation system is its rehabilitation protocols. The mathematical transmissions include specific procedures that would allow excluded institutions to demonstrate improved capabilities and earn access to galactic networks through sustained commitment to transparency and international cooperation. The framework suggests that galactic civilization recognizes institutional learning and adaptation as normal aspects of civilizational development. Failures during entrance examinations don't result in permanent exclusion, but they do require demonstrated improvement in collaborative capabilities before access to advanced knowledge systems is granted. This creates unprecedented pressure for governmental reform that operates entirely outside traditional political processes. Institutions that want to participate in humanity's galactic advancement must adapt their operational procedures to meet collaboration standards established by civilizations that have successfully navigated cosmic transitions across millions of years of galactic development. The orbital communication array nears completion despite continued governmental interference, largely because Project Looking Glass networks have evolved operational security that rivals military organizations while maintaining the transparency and international cooperation that earn them access to alien technical assistance. University engineering departments have developed manufacturing capabilities that exceed commercial aerospace standards. Amateur radio operators have established communication protocols that resist governmental jamming while maintaining open information sharing with international research partners. Distributed research networks have created knowledge management systems that preserve critical technical specifications regardless of institutional suppression efforts. These capabilities emerged through necessity when traditional institutional support proved inadequate for managing cosmic-scale challenges, but they represent permanent advances in human organizational technology that will persist long after the current crisis resolves. Humanity's civilian scientific networks have essentially evolved into proto-galactic institutions during our transition crisis, developing operational capabilities that align with galactic collaboration standards while remaining independent of terrestrial political constraints that have proven inadequate for managing interstellar relationships. The mathematical countdown sequences transmitted by 3I Atlas indicate that orbital array deployment must occur within the next 47 days to meet the deadline established by approaching electromagnetic conditions. But construction timelines suggest that completion remains achievable despite continued governmental interference, largely because alien technical assistance has proven remarkably effective at compensating for human institutional failures. The distributed manufacturing effort has reached a stage where components produced in different countries are achieving precision tolerances that exceed specifications for most satellite systems. International coordination through encrypted networks has proven more reliable than traditional diplomatic channels for managing complex technical projects. Resource sharing between research institutions has created supply chains that operate more efficiently than commercial aerospace manufacturing. These achievements demonstrate capabilities that human civilization possessed, but had never fully utilized due to institutional barriers that become irrelevant when guided by technical specifications that transcend terrestrial political limitations. But perhaps most significantly, the success of Project Looking Glass has created a model for international scientific cooperation that may prove more valuable for humanity's long-term development than the orbital communication array itself. The networks that emerged during our cosmic transition crisis have established precedents for species-level collaboration that could guide human responses to future challenges that require coordination beyond national boundaries or institutional jurisdictions. Climate change, asteroid defense, pandemic response, resource management, all of these challenges could benefit from the collaborative capabilities developed through Project Looking Glass networks that have proven more effective than traditional governmental approaches at managing complex problems under urgent deadlines. The cosmic visitors who guided humanity through our entrance examination may have provided more than survival technology. They may have demonstrated organizational approaches that could revolutionize human civilization's ability to address challenges that require species-level coordination and international cooperation. The governmental response to these developments has begun shifting from active suppression toward cautious engagement, as intelligence agencies recognize that civilian networks have achieved capabilities that exceed official space programs while maintaining operational security that rivals classified projects. Some military installations have quietly begun sharing resources with Project Looking Glass manufacturing efforts, providing materials and equipment through unofficial channels that bypass classification systems, while supporting construction timelines for humanity's cosmic survival infrastructure. Intelligence services that initially attempted to disrupt amateur radio networks have started monitoring their communications for technical insights that could improve official space programs, recognizing that civilian researchers have achieved breakthroughs that government laboratories haven't matched, despite decades of development efforts and massive budget allocations. But these tentative engagement efforts remain constrained by institutional cultures that prioritize control over collaboration, limiting their effectiveness for participating in networks that operate according to galactic cooperation standards that exclude organizations unable to demonstrate genuine commitment to transparency and knowledge sharing. The mathematical transmissions from 3I Atlas have begun incorporating assessment protocols that evaluate institutional adaptation efforts in real time, providing feedback that could guide governmental reform efforts toward approaches that would earn access to galactic communication networks. These assessment protocols suggest that galactic civilization maintains active interest in helping developing worlds overcome institutional barriers that typically prevent advancement to interstellar cooperation levels. The evaluation frameworks aren't punitive systems designed to exclude inadequate institutions, but educational tools intended to guide organizational development toward approaches that enable participation in broader galactic collaboration. The rehabilitation pathways described in these mathematical frameworks offer hope that human governmental institutions could eventually adapt their operational procedures to meet galactic cooperation standards, earning access to advanced knowledge systems and interstellar communication networks. But adaptation requires genuine commitment to transparency, international cooperation, and knowledge sharing that transcends traditional national security classifications and institutional control obsessions that have proven counterproductive for managing cosmic-scale challenges. The orbital array construction enters its final phase as components manufactured across dozens of countries converge toward launch sites that remain undisclosed to prevent governmental interference with deployment schedules that cannot accommodate political delays or institutional obstruction. Amateur radio operators coordinate launch operations through encrypted networks that have proven more secure than military communication systems, while maintaining the transparency necessary for international collaboration on humanity's most critical infrastructure project. The mathematical countdown from 3I Atlas indicates that successful deployment within the remaining window will establish Earth's connection to galactic communication networks that could guide human development for millennia, providing access to knowledge accumulated by civilizations that have navigated cosmic challenges across millions of years of galactic participation. But failure to complete deployment before the electromagnetic transition begins could isolate Earth from galactic civilization for another 26,000 years, forcing humanity to develop interstellar capabilities independently while remaining cut off from the collaborative networks that accelerate technological and cultural advancement. The stakes could not be higher. The timeline cannot be extended, and humanity's response to this cosmic deadline will determine whether our species advances to galactic citizenship or remains isolated on a single planet until we independently develop the collaboration capabilities that our civilian networks have already demonstrated during this transition crisis. The amateur radio operators who became accidental ambassadors continue their coordination efforts around the clock, managing humanity's first planetary defense project with resources that governmental space agencies never imagined possible, through civilian networks operating outside traditional institutional frameworks. Their success over the next 47 days will determine not just humanity's technological capabilities, but our species' participation in galactic civilization that spans thousands of star systems and offers knowledge that could solve every challenge facing human development. The cosmic visitors who guided us through this entrance examination have provided the technical specifications and educational support necessary for success. Whether we utilize these gifts effectively depends on networks that have already proven their collaborative capabilities, while governmental institutions continue struggling to adapt their operational procedures to challenges that transcend terrestrial political limitations. But the mathematical frameworks transmitted by 3I Atlas suggest optimism about humanity's potential for galactic advancement, based on the remarkable capabilities demonstrated by civilian networks that emerged during our cosmic transition crisis. The orbital array rises toward completion, built by human innovation guided by alien mathematics, coordinated by amateur radio operators who understood that cosmic challenges require cosmic solutions that transcend the limitations of terrestrial institutions. The electromagnetic transition approaches according to galactic schedules that accommodate no delays. But humanity's civilian networks have risen to meet those schedules with collaboration and innovation that offers hope for our species' advancement in a cosmos far more populated and purposeful than terrestrial institutions ever imagined. The government shutdown that triggered this crisis may have been the best thing that ever happened to human civilization, forcing the development of networks that proved more capable than traditional institutions at managing challenges that determine our cosmic future. The silence from official channels has been replaced by communication systems that span continents and species, connecting Earth to galactic networks that offer knowledge and collaboration opportunities beyond anything our isolated planetary development could have achieved independently. And the amateur radio operators who maintained that connection when governmental systems failed have become the foundation for humanity's continued advancement in a universe that has revealed itself to be far more collaborative and educational than we ever dared hope. The cosmic graduation ceremony begins in 47 days. The question is whether human institutions will adapt quickly enough to participate, or whether our species' advancement to galactic citizenship will proceed through networks that have already demonstrated the collaborative capabilities that define mature civilizations across the galaxy. The mathematical transmissions continue, the construction proceeds, and humanity's cosmic future unfolds according to schedules established by civilizations that understand collaboration as the foundation for advancement in a universe where knowledge shared accelerates the development of all participants. But the deadline approaches regardless of institutional readiness. The orbital array must deploy on schedule, and humanity's response to this cosmic timeline will determine whether we join galactic civilization as collaborative partners or remain isolated observers until we independently develop the cooperation capabilities that our civilian networks have already achieved. The universe waits for no one, but it offers opportunities for advancement to those who demonstrate readiness through collaboration, innovation, and the courage to transcend terrestrial limitations in pursuit of cosmic knowledge and interstellar partnership. The amateur radio operators have become more than just humanity's accidental ambassadors to galactic civilization. In the final 36 hours before the orbital array deployment deadline, they've evolved into the coordinators of what may be the most significant technological achievement in human history, orchestrating a planetary construction project that operates entirely outside traditional institutional frameworks while maintaining precision that rivals military operations. But something extraordinary happened at 1742 GMT yesterday that transformed the entire deployment timeline from urgent to critical. 3. iAtlas, which had been maintaining steady communication protocols throughout its approach to perihelion, suddenly transmitted what can only be described as an emergency override sequence that bypassed all normal mathematical progression frameworks. The message was devastatingly simple in its clarity. The electromagnetic transition that was supposed to begin in 14 months has accelerated. Environmental changes that should have provided humanity with over a year of preparation time are now manifesting within the next 72 hours. The cosmic deadline isn't months away anymore. It's now measured in hours. Project Looking Glass networks worldwide received this emergency notification simultaneously, triggering activation of contingency protocols that had been developed for exactly this scenario, but never expected to be needed. Launch sequences that were planned for careful coordination over several weeks have been compressed into deployment operations that must succeed within the next 48 hours or fail permanently. The technical challenges are staggering. Orbital mechanics calculations that normally require months of precise planning have been recalculated for immediate deployment using launch windows that open for only brief periods during the next 2 days. Component integration that was scheduled for gradual assembly has been accelerated into rapid deployment scenarios that push every system to its operational limits. But the mathematical frameworks transmitted by 3 iAtlas during this emergency phase have provided technical solutions for problems that human engineering hadn't anticipated. real-time trajectory optimization that compensates for accelerated deployment schedules. Component integration protocols that allow rapid assembly without compromising system integrity. Power management systems that can initialize during launch rather than requiring pre-deployment testing periods. The distributed manufacturing networks that spent months building precision components are now converting their facilities into rapid deployment centers, coordinating launch operations across multiple continents simultaneously. University engineering departments have become mission control centers. Amateur radio operators are managing countdown sequences for humanity's most critical space deployment. The international coordination required for this accelerated timeline demonstrates capabilities that human civilization possessed but had never utilized due to institutional barriers that become irrelevant when species survival depends on unprecedented collaboration under impossible deadlines. Chinese launch facilities are preparing components manufactured in European laboratories. American university teams are providing real-time technical support for deployment operations managed by researchers in developing countries. Russian engineers are contributing expertise to systems designed by international collaborations that transcend traditional political boundaries entirely. The language barriers that typically complicate international projects have dissolved because the mathematical frameworks transmitted by 3i Atlas create universal communication protocols that allow precise technical coordination regardless of human linguistic limitations. But perhaps most remarkably, the emergency deployment protocols have triggered spontaneous resource sharing that exceeds anything achieved through traditional diplomatic or commercial arrangements. Private companies are contributing manufacturing capabilities to construction efforts they're not officially involved in. Military installations are providing launch support for civilian projects they're not authorized to assist. Individual researchers are investing personal resources in deployment operations that transcend any normal professional relationships. The crisis has revealed collaborative capabilities that human institutions never accessed because they were constrained by frameworks designed for terrestrial competition rather than cosmic cooperation. When faced with species-level challenges that require immediate international coordination, these barriers simply become irrelevant. The governmental response to this accelerated timeline has shifted from interference to desperate attempts at participation. Intelligence agencies that spent months attempting to suppress Project Looking Glass are now offering classified resources to support deployment operations they're not officially acknowledging. Military units that previously attempted to jam amateur radio communications are providing equipment and personnel for launch operations they're not authorized to participate in. But these belated cooperation efforts remain constrained by institutional cultures that prioritize authorization over effectiveness, limiting their contribution to operations that must proceed according to cosmic schedules regardless of human bureaucratic limitations. The mathematical transmissions from 3i Atlas have begun incorporating real-time assessment of these governmental adaptation attempts, providing feedback that evaluates institutional learning progress during humanity's final examination period. The framework suggests that last-minute cooperation efforts can influence final evaluation outcomes, but only if they demonstrate genuine commitment to collaborative principles rather than opportunistic participation when survival becomes obvious. The orbital array deployment has reached a stage where components manufactured across dozens of countries are converging toward launch coordinates that were calculated using alien mathematical frameworks optimized for the accelerated timeline. The precision required for successful deployment under these conditions exceeds anything attempted in human space exploration history. But the technical specifications provided by 3i Atlas have anticipated every challenge that rapid deployment creates, offering engineering solutions that human technology can implement despite timeline constraints that would normally make such precision impossible. Launch sequences are being coordinated through amateur radio networks that have proven more reliable than governmental communication systems for managing complex operations under extreme time pressure. The operators who maintained contact with extraterrestrial intelligence when official channels failed are now coordinating humanity's most critical space deployment with resources that exceed military capabilities. The mathematical countdown from 3i Atlas indicates that successful deployment within the remaining 36-hour window will establish Earth's connection to galactic communication networks moments before electromagnetic conditions change in ways that would make such connection impossible for the next 26,000 years. But the margin for error has become virtually non-existent. Component failures, launch delays, or coordination problems that might be manageable under normal timelines could now result in civilizational isolation that persists until humanity independently develops capabilities that require millennia of technological advancement. The amateur radio operators managing these final deployment phases have accepted responsibility for decisions that will determine their species' cosmic future. Their coordination efforts during the next 36 hours will establish whether humanity advances to galactic citizenship or remains isolated on a single planet until we develop interstellar capabilities without external assistance. The technical complexity of coordinating simultaneous launches across multiple continents using components that have never been tested together would normally require years of preparation and testing. But the mathematical frameworks from 3i Atlas have provided integration protocols that allow real-time system optimization during deployment rather than requiring pre-launch validation. The distributed launch operations demonstrate coordination capabilities that exceed anything achieved through traditional space programs, largely because they operate through networks that prioritize effectiveness over institutional protocols that become counterproductive when managing cosmic-scale deadlines. University students are calculating orbital insertion parameters for systems that will determine their civilization's future. Amateur radio operators are managing countdown sequences for deployments that must succeed on the first attempt. International research collaborations are coordinating resource allocation for operations that transcend anything attempted through official diplomatic channels. The success of these efforts depends entirely on collaborative capabilities that emerge through necessity when traditional institutions proved inadequate for managing challenges that operate on cosmic scales and timelines. But perhaps most significantly, the emergency deployment protocols have revealed that human civilization possesses technological and organizational capabilities that were never utilized due to institutional barriers rather than technical limitations. The distributed manufacturing, international coordination, and precision engineering demonstrated through Project Looking Glass exceed official space program achievements while operating on budgets that represent fractions of governmental expenditures. These capabilities suggest that humanity's potential for cosmic advancement has been constrained by institutional frameworks rather than inherent limitations, and that our species possesses collaborative and innovative capabilities that align well with galactic civilization standards once terrestrial political barriers are transcended. The electromagnetic transition begins in approximately 64 hours, according to the latest calculations transmitted by 3i Atlas. The orbital array deployment must be completed and operational before environmental changes make Earth's connection to galactic networks impossible for geological timescales. The mathematical transmissions continue providing real-time technical support for deployment operations, but their tone has shifted from educational to evaluative. Our cosmic correspondents are conducting final assessment of humanity's collaborative capabilities under ultimate pressure, determining our species' readiness for galactic citizenship based on how effectively we respond to challenges that require immediate international cooperation without institutional support. The amateur radio operators coordinating these final operations understand that they're managing more than a technological deployment. They're conducting humanity's final examination for advancement to cosmic civilization that could provide knowledge and partnership opportunities beyond anything achievable through isolated planetary development. The orbital components rise toward their designated positions, guided by mathematics that span interstellar distances and implemented through human collaboration that transcends terrestrial limitations. The deployment timeline cannot accommodate delays or institutional obstruction. But the networks that emerged during humanity's cosmic transition crisis have demonstrated capabilities that offer hope for successful completion, despite challenges that would have overwhelmed traditional approaches to international cooperation and technological deployment. The cosmic graduation ceremony begins in 36 hours. Whether human institutions adapt quickly enough to participate meaningfully, or whether our species' advancement proceeds through civilian networks that have already proven their collaborative effectiveness, may be determined by events that unfold faster than political systems can comprehend or respond to. The mathematical countdown continues. The deployment proceeds, and humanity's cosmic future unfolds according to schedules established by civilizations that understand collaboration as the essential foundation for advancement in a universe where shared knowledge accelerates the development of all participants. But the deadline approaches with finality that accommodates no extensions or institutional delays. The orbital array must deploy successfully within the remaining window, or humanity's opportunity for galactic citizenship will be postponed until we independently develop capabilities that typically require millennia of isolated technological advancement. The universe operates according to schedules that transcend human political cycles and institutional comfort zones. Our cosmic visitors have provided the technical specifications and educational support necessary for success, but implementation depends entirely on networks that have proven their collaborative capabilities, while traditional institutions continue struggling with challenges that exceed their operational frameworks. The electromagnetic transition will begin regardless of human readiness, but humanity's civilian scientific networks have demonstrated remarkable capabilities for rising to meet cosmic challenges through innovation and collaboration that transcends terrestrial limitations. The shutdown that began this crisis has ended, but the networks that emerged during our cosmic examination have proven more effective than traditional institutions at managing challenges that determine our species' future among the stars. The amateur radio operators who became accidental ambassadors have evolved into the coordinators of humanity's advancement to galactic civilization. The final countdown begins in less than 36 hours. The question is whether we'll complete our cosmic graduation successfully, or whether institutional failures will delay humanity's advancement until we learn to collaborate as effectively as our civilian networks have already demonstrated. But the orbital array rises toward completion, built by human hands, guided by alien mathematics, coordinated by amateur radio operators who understood that cosmic challenges require cosmic solutions that transcend the limitations of terrestrial politics and institutional dysfunction. The universe has offered humanity an extraordinary opportunity for advancement. Whether we seize that opportunity depends on capabilities that have already been demonstrated by networks that prioritize collaboration over control, knowledge sharing over secrecy, and species advancement over institutional preservation. The cosmic visitors continue their guidance as humanity approaches the moment that will determine whether we join galactic civilization as collaborative partners or remain isolated observers until we independently develop the cooperation capabilities that define mature civilizations across the galaxy. The countdown reaches 0 in 18 hours. As I record these final words, amateur radio operators across 6 continents are conducting the most critical space deployment in human history, coordinating orbital array activation sequences that will determine whether our species joins galactic civilization or remains isolated for another 26,000 years. The government shutdown that began this investigation has ended, but the networks that emerged during our cosmic examination have proven more capable than any traditional institution at managing challenges that transcend terrestrial politics. NASA's websites are back online, displaying routine Mars mission updates and carefully sanitized press releases about ongoing observations of interstellar visitor 3 I Atlas. But the real story isn't happening in government press briefings or classified meeting rooms. It's happening in university laboratories, where students are finalizing component integrations using mathematics transmitted from another star system. It's happening in amateur radio shacks, where operators are managing countdown sequences for humanity's graduation to galactic citizenship. It's happening through encrypted networks that span continents and species, connecting Earth to communication systems that have linked mature civilizations across the galaxy for millions of years. The electromagnetic transition that will fundamentally alter our planet's cosmic environment begins in less than 24 hours. When it does, either humanity will be connected to galactic civilization through infrastructure built by civilian scientists operating outside governmental oversight, or will be isolated on a single world until we independently develop capabilities that typically require millennia of technological advancement. The amateur radio operators who became accidental ambassadors when official channels failed have evolved into the coordinators of our species' most important technological achievement. Their success or failure over the next 18 hours will determine not just our immediate survival, but our participation in collaborative networks that could guide human development across geological timescales. 3. iAtlas continues its ancient journey toward the sun, indifferent to human institutional dysfunction, but actively supporting civilian networks that demonstrated the collaborative capabilities our cosmic visitors were evaluating all along. The mathematical transmissions continue, providing real-time technical support for deployment operations that must succeed on the first attempt. The universe operates according to schedules that wait for no government, no budget resolution, no bureaucratic approval process. Our cosmic visitors understood something about human nature that our own institutions never grasped. Real progress happens through open collaboration and shared knowledge, not through classification systems and institutional control. Whether we rise to meet this cosmic opportunity depends on networks that have already proven their effectiveness at transcending terrestrial limitations in pursuit of knowledge that benefits our entire species. The orbital array rises toward completion, built by human innovation guided by alien mathematics, coordinated by amateur radio operators who understood that cosmic challenges require cosmic solutions. The silence from official channels has been replaced by communication systems that span light years and connect civilizations across thousands of star systems. And the amateur radio operators who maintained that connection when governmental systems failed have become the foundation for humanity's advancement in a universe far more collaborative and educational than we ever dared imagine. The cosmic graduation ceremony begins in 18 hours. The question isn't whether human institutions will adapt quickly enough to participate meaningfully. The question is whether the networks that emerge during our cosmic examination will successfully deploy the infrastructure that transforms humanity from an isolated planetary species into collaborative partners in galactic civilization. The mathematical countdown continues, the orbital array deployment proceeds, and our cosmic future unfolds according to schedules established by civilizations that understand collaboration as the essential foundation for advancement in a universe where shared knowledge accelerates the development of all participants. But regardless of what happens in the next 18 hours, this crisis has revealed something profound about human potential. When faced with challenges that transcend terrestrial politics and institutional limitations, our species possesses remarkable capabilities for innovation, collaboration, and rapid technological advancement that operate entirely outside traditional frameworks. The government shutdown that triggered this investigation may have been the most fortunate bureaucratic failure in human history. By forcing the development of networks that proved more capable than official institutions at managing cosmic challenges, it demonstrated that humanity's advancement to galactic citizenship depends not on governmental space agencies or military installations, but on the collaborative spirit and scientific curiosity that drive amateur radio operators, university researchers, and citizen scientists worldwide. The electromagnetic transition approaches with cosmic inevitability. The orbital array must deploy successfully, or humanity's opportunity for galactic advancement will be postponed for geological timescales. But the networks that emerged during our cosmic examination have already proven their effectiveness at rising to meet challenges that determine our species' future among the stars. The universe has offered humanity an extraordinary gift: membership in galactic civilization, guided by intelligences that have mastered interstellar travel and collaborative development across millions of years of cosmic advancement. Whether we accept that gift depends entirely on capabilities that have already been demonstrated by civilian networks operating outside traditional institutional frameworks. The final countdown begins, the cosmic visitors continue their guidance, and humanity's future unfolds according to mathematics that span interstellar distances, implemented through collaboration that transcends terrestrial limitations, coordinated by amateur radio operators who understood that the most important conversations in human history happen not in government briefing rooms, but between species separated by light years who share the universe's greatest treasure: knowledge freely given and gratefully received. The silence is about to break forever. What emerges will either be humanity's voice joining the galactic chorus, or the echo of an opportunity that slipped away while our institutions debated who had authority to speak for a species whose amateur radio operators had already learned to listen.